All right. I don't even know why I'm going live now, but we live. We are live. I didn't advertise this live or anything. You know what I mean? So we just here. I'm not going to be before you too long because it is kind of late. This is definitely a late night edition. And I'm just going to chat a little bit. So Friday, which was yesterday, I did not get a chance to go live because I missed the deadline for 11 p.m. So I chose not to go live. I wanted to go live today earlier, also missed the deadline. However, I said, let me just go anyway. Now, today, good news is I was spending a lot of time researching today. I think yesterday I was on Clubhouse on Friday. Again, if you're not on Clubhouse, you need to go to Clubhouse. You can find me on Clubhouse at DivineProspect. Just look up DivineProspect. You'll find my profile there on Clubhouse and follow it. I mean, join now. If you need an invitation to Clubhouse, if for whatever reason you can't get it set up, you can text me at 678-430-3832. Text me at 678-430-3832, and I'll be sure to send you an invitation. However, I believe that everybody should have the ability to join Clubhouse now, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So been on Clubhouse. That's what I've been doing. Earlier this week has been really busy with work, trying to get as many calls in as I can, get some things restructured and reorganized with KHM, which I'm still working out. Trying to do some meetings this week coming up. Did a couple of small meetings last week, but this meeting coming up, got to do some more meetings this weekend. Actually, I was supposed to be in New York City. That did not happen. So a lot of things are not going according to plan, but I'm not giving up and keep pushing through, especially with KHM, not just me teaching and stuff like that, but with the KHM element, which is the most important thing. I'm trying my best to maintain that and not just push it off to the side, because there's a lot of headache. It's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And sometimes I'm like, let me just push it off. But so many people are benefiting from the ministry offline that I don't just want to just nip it in the butt right now. Even though it's some hard times and some ups and downs, I'm still pushing through. And the good news is the Most High has placed a lot of good people on my path to hook up, link up, partner with, and be a member to KHM. And I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? All my KHM members out there, I appreciate that. But again, if you don't see a lot of content on here, you definitely want to follow me on Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse, we're close to meeting our goal of 1,000 followers on Clubhouse and 500 members of our KHM Research Discussions Club. All right. So we almost hit those numbers. Once we hit those numbers, then I'm still going to be on Clubhouse, but I'm going to venture off and start working more on digital content to provide for the Patreon, as well as this channel and other content that I want to start doing. A lot of things. So like, for example, so we was yesterday on Clubhouse, well, Friday on Clubhouse. I'm not going to say yesterday because technically in the Eastern Standard Time, it's 12:30 a.m. So it's after hours. But on Friday on Clubhouse, there was a room going, and it was dealing with, is Job an Israelite? Man, that was a really, really good session. If you missed it, you just missed it. You feel what I'm saying? If you missed it, you just missed it. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, that session was dynamic. It was epic, man. We was on there for like 3 hours, some change, and invited anybody to come up to prove their point, whether or not Job was an Israelite or not. The conclusion that we came to, a consensus of the people on the panel who were really heavy into research, we said that, Job was either from Aram, and he was one of the peoples that lived natively in Aram, or he was in the region of Edom, right? Either an Edomite or a peoples that lived in that region of Edom before the Edomites have taken over that region. All of this is what's called the Transjordan region, right? So we was reasoning from the text, not only the text, I mentioned a lot of the linguistic forms that we find in the book of Job that shows that the book of Job is a Transjordan work, right? Or has an origin in the Transjordan region that was then translated or in some form into Hebrew and used for a Hebrew audience. However, there are a lot of archaic syntaxes, morphologies in there, idioms in there, I mean, it is very unique and archaic. So much so, there's a lot of affinities to Akkadian. Some have intimated that there was elements of Arabic that is in there. Definitely Aramaisms, which has been found and discovered in there. It has a very, very unique format, and the Yikatal form that is in there is very interesting as well. And I was just recently reading a paper on that, showcasing how it shows affinities to Transjordan Canaanite peoples in regards to the usage of some of the morphology and the syntax structure of the clauses in the book of Job. Also, we went over things that he cannot have been an Israelite because there are certain elements that's not found in the book of Job, such as no reference to a covenant, no reference to statute, laws, and commandments, no reference to a priesthood, no reference to a temple, etc., etc. Things that you find very apparent in other patriarchal works, and so forth. Also, we see that Job performs a burnt offering on behalf of possibly ignorant sins that his sons may have committed when they were feasting on each one of their own days. And we went into the book of Leviticus chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, and 4, and more notably Leviticus 1, which deals with the burnt offerings, Leviticus 4, which deals with the sin offerings. And pretty much the sin offerings we're talking about is the offering for an ignorant sin, a sin that was committed in ignorance, and a burnt offering, which is a voluntary offering that you give to the Most High. So Job gave a burnt offering in place of a sin offering. The scripture starts out in Job chapter 1 saying that Job was an upright and blameless man. Well, an upright and blameless man who's also an Israelite would not be performing sacrifices on behalf of his children to the Most High outside the land of Jerusalem, right? A devout Israelite would not be doing that. He would be going to the temple and giving the proper prescribed offering, right? And or have his children go into it, because the text says he called for them and set them out and gave an offering on their behalf. So these were customs that were being performed, right, in a manner that was understood in the Transjordan region, that you could give burnt offerings on behalf of somebody else. If you're the patriarch of the home, you act as the priest of the home, right? Very distinct and peculiar from what we see of the other patriarchs. Another patriarch that we did see give a burnt offering was Noah. However, Noah gave a burnt offering voluntarily. The Most High did not say anything about Noah committing a sin that required him to give a clean animal that was a burnt offering. Again, that was something distinct, but at least that went more in alignment with Leviticus chapter 1 with the regulations for a burnt offering. The only difference was because the Levitical priesthood was not established. This is why he was able to give it directly to the Most High in the absence of the Levitical priesthood and in the absence of the tabernacle when they were wandering all the way up into the time of Solomon when the temple was constructed, right? So we see a lot of peculiarities there. I went into the Hapaxa, or what they call the Hapax Legomena. And the Hapax Legomena just simply means there are certain words that are found in the book of Job that is found nowhere else in the rest of Scripture. Very unique to the book of Job, right? Extremely unique to the book of Job, and other features as well. So these were things that we were kind of hashing out. We had several people come up there that was trying to say that Job was an Israelite. One person gave me Genesis chapter 46 and was giving us the names of Issachar, of the sons of Issachar, and said, look, it says Job right there. And I said, wait, slow down, bro. Go into the Hebrew, see what that word Job is, how it's spelled there, and go into the book of Job and see how that's spelled in the Hebrew, and let me know if it's the same. And he did it, and then he just got quiet and dipped out. Another person said, go to Job chapter 30, verse 30, where Job says, my skin is black. And I said, wait a second, hold on. This verb here, which is sahar, is similar to the noun shakar, which means black, but because it's a verb, it is in the cow stem, simple performative action, right? Or simple active voice in which you're doing it, but it's also in the perfect tense. So it should say, my skin blackened, and then it falls away. And then I kind of explained to him about what we call the etiology of atopic dermatitis. But in this case, he had boils on his skin, and tried to explain to him how the cutaneous layer of the skin, or what we call the upper dermis of the skin, how that works and how it operates when you have boils and other kinds of other skin lesions, etc. Your skin darkens. It's part of the healing process, right? So I had to break that down for him, because I guess he was saying that because there said that he said he was black, that means that he was an Israelite. It was really, really interesting. Anybody that was on there, they was able to peep that. And that was very interesting when I seen that, you know what I'm saying? Now, what Brother Aaron says, the Septuagint gives support that Job is an Edomite. However, that's an appendix in the Septuagint. Nonetheless, the translators that maintain that tradition until we had an extant copy of the Septuagint, which is an AD period, maintained that he was an Edomite. Also, Rashi, the great Rabbi Rashi, he also posited that Job was from Aram. That was his position in regards to that. However, what I was trying to point people to is that if you go into this book right here, which I recommended everybody to have, the Cultural Background Study Bible, everybody needs this in a library, and you go in here and you just read, right? You read Job 1:1, where it says the land of Uz, and then it goes in into where his homeland is at, right? That he was a great man from the east, etc. Right? This goes into detail, positing that Job was either from Aram or Edom, but he definitely was not an Israelite. Definitely was not an Israelite. And then it gets in even deeper on page 826 of the same book, which goes on to how his thought forms towards the Most High was similar to that of an Israelite, even though he is not believed to be an Israelite. And the consensus is that he is not an Israelite. What we're pretty much trying to show is that sometimes some people in our community try to force Israelite on everything in the text, and that is extremely detrimental to the integrity of the text, right, and to the culture themselves. And it's just unfortunate when people in our community do that. So that was a session that we had to do to actually school some people on that. And again, it was an excellent build. So anybody that's here that was actually in that build, you can attest that it was really, really interesting, man. So yes, Jacolia, the book of Job is one of the most antiquated texts in the entire book. And I mentioned that several reasons why that's discovered or determined to be so. Matter of fact, what I can show you guys is this article. Tons of articles and several sources that go into detail on the textual analysis of the book of Job. One of the articles that I was reading recently or reading over recently, because I went over it before, is this article here. I'm going to show it to y'all. Excellent article that goes into it. It's called Observations on the Language of Job. All right. I'm going to bring it up and show it to you on the screen. And anybody that's interested in this article will be up on Patreon after this session is over, so you guys can read it as well yourself. Let me zoom in. All right, I share my screen with y'all. All right, hold on. All right, Observations on the Language of Job by Christian G. Rata, Torch Trinity Graduate School of Theology in Korea, right? Excellent book. The book of Job is well known for the difficulty of its language from earliest translations to modern times. This problem has given rise to a series of theories concerning its language and origin. Some of these theories and the responses to them are discussed, including attempts to analyze the language of the book in key articles and monographs. While most of these studies have concentrated on the lexical aspects, what is needed is a sustained effort to analyze the entire grammar of the book of Job. In order to understand the language of Job, it would be more fruitful to attempt a more comprehensive grammatical study, especially one that pays close attention to the verb and text linguistic issues. Okay, the Hebrew of the book of Job is arguably the most difficult in the Bible. Through the centuries, commentators have pointed out the challenges that they themselves encounter when trying to make sense and translate this masterpiece of world literature. While the list of such commentators starts at least as early as Jerome, the following quote from Luther makes the point as well. In more recent times, other statements about the difficulty of the language have been made. As reported by F.M. Cross, claimed that 50% of Job remains unintelligible, and M. Dahoud thought that at least 30% of the verses was untranslated. While these statements could be dismissed as exaggerated claims, they clearly point to the perceived difficulty in the language of this book, despite the considerable advances made in the understanding of the Hebrew language and of its cognates. Basically, every scholar who analyzes the book of Job does not fail to mention the difficulty or peculiarity of this book. Thus, F.I. Anderson says that the language in which Job was written presents many peculiarities which have baffled scholars. M. Pope points out that the problem of the language has many aspects. The problems of Job, however, are not simply lexical, but also morphological and syntactic. The language is ostensibly Hebrew, but with so many peculiarities that some scholars have wondered whether it might not have been influenced by some other Semitic dialect. Argotis notes that in the book of Job, the reader is confronted by a rich and often obscure vocabulary, a unique style, a complex structure, and profundity. Hopefully, I know I'm saying that right. Of thought, all of which makes great demands, not only on scholars' learning, but also on his insight. And L.L. Grab, which I recommend, Lester L. Grab, one of my favorite, I would say, Semitic scholars of Judaism and Old Testament studies. He said he took the book of Job for an exercise in comparative philology because of the many philological riddles which still taunt each new exegete who thinks he can mark trails where others have failed. The difficulty of the book of Job is also stressed in a more recent analysis started by W.L. Mikhail, who notes that even the ancient translators were struggling with this language. The Hebrew text of the book of Job has defied efforts of scores of brilliant scholars to unravel its mysteries for more than 2 millennia. The study of ancient versions and of the Masoretic text reveals that even ancient translators were quite often at a loss to comprehend a text which was already ancient to them. Modern scholars possess a vast amount of information about ancient Semitic languages, which their ancient colleagues did not have at their disposal, but they have not fared a lot better. Despite his painstaking study using the North Semitic method, his conclusion after finishing his first volume, chapters 1 to 14 to verse 22, re-emphasizes the difficulty of the language of Job in a rather discouraging tone. It is with a deep sense of frustration that I must report, after years of painstaking study, that it is my conviction that no methodology has been able to unlock the doors to the mystery of Job. The difficulty of the language of the book of Job was also pointed out by the translators of various versions of the Bible. In the New Jewish Version, it says there are many difficulties in the poetry of Job, making the interpretation of words, verses, and even chapters uncertain. The rubric meaning uncertain in this book indicates only some of the most extreme cases, right? So I'm not going to read all of this to you, but this was just, I liked it. It was just a wonderful, wonderful read, man. Going into the consecutive wav and how it was indifferent, you know what I'm saying, in the text and the yikotol usage of the yikotol syntax for the verbal form was very common in certain ways, which relates it to other Transjordian and Canaanite languages, that it has a Canaanite poetic tradition as far as its format. So many things in here, places where the jussive is in there in place of the imperfect, which is unusual for biblical Hebrew. There were so many puzzles and just challenges in this thing. It's truly incredible, right? So the thing is, in me reading it and looking at these forms and trying to understand it, I realized that the book of Job was a very tantalizing work. And for people to say that this was originally from an Israelite is ridiculous, because there's so many things in here that we don't see in any other book of the Bible. Check it. Most books of the Bible read very similar, right? Even despite them being in different times, right? However, the book of Job, it's a totally different monster altogether. But it was believed that this might have been a Transjordian oral tradition about this man that was then placed in a Israelite narrative to teach a lesson to an Israelite audience, right? This is what some of the bottom line was by a lot of scholars that have looked at this text. Very fascinating. So anybody out there that's a biblical Hebrew student like me, myself, I encourage you, take a shot. If you're going to translate something, take a shot at the book of Job. I've tried it twice. Man, that thing messed me up. Any other book I can get into and work. For example, another book that's really interesting is the book of Jonah. The book of Jonah is very interesting. And other books of the Bible that are not Aramaic in nature, right? The Aramaic books of the Bible are very easy. If you know Aramaic, even if you know some Hebrew, you can make your way through it. However, the book of Jonah is a challenge. The book of Job is the biggest challenge. So if you like parsing the Hebrew like I do, I would say give a shot at the book of Job. I'm telling you, that thing will mess you up. All right. So anyway, so I want to share that because that's some of the stuff that we had touched on Friday, and you know, a series that I'll bring in on here as well. Another interesting thing is looking at the term profane, right? The term profane. So I'm going to show you something interesting, okay? Since we're here today. And again, just sharing some stuff with y'all. You know, that's what we do over here. Before we go, let me give a couple of shout outs. And again, I added new resources onto Patreon. So there's new resources on Patreon. I just recently added a source on Patreon where we have Portuguese travelers who were able to, or not able to, or who identified Jews, so they're called Gauls, in the 15th century along the Senegal River in Mandinga country along, you know, within the Wolof Kingdom or the Wolof peoples, which is a dialect. It's not homogeneous, but whatever. And they found these group of Jews that had lived there in great mass on the outskirts of the town because they lived separate and distinct from the other ones. They didn't have any synagogues, and their practices was distinct from other Jews as well, which is a very interesting study. But I put the primary source up for you guys to look at it for yourself. It's on the Patreon. I also have other sources on the Patreon. Matter of fact, since we talk about the Patreon, let me just show it to you real quick, and then we'll get back to this word profane. Again, if you're interested in learning the language, you can go to our Patreon as well. A good thing about the Patreon now is that I pinned a post. For anybody that is a Patreon member, I pinned a post that outlines all the not all the resources, but most of the resources that we have on the Patreon. So if you're looking to see, wait, man, how can I get to the language portion? That pinned post that I have there, you can click on it and it will give it to you. Also, we have the Experience Audio Bible, the book of Exodus, that will be uploaded to that soon. Again, this is a phenomenal, I think it's the best audio Bible I've ever heard in my life, because it also has people that look like me and you speaking it. These are celebrities, actors and actresses, etc., that have acted out this audio Bible, and has ambient sounds and orchestral music and so forth. It's just a wonderful audio series of the Bible, and I recommend it to everybody here. I'll be adding the book of Exodus over the next couple of days. We already have the whole book of Genesis. I'm going to add the book of Exodus, and then following the book of Exodus in another couple of weeks, I'll add Leviticus, right? So we have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, right? And before the year's up, we'll have the whole Chumash of Moshe, the whole 5 books of Moshe on there. And then going into next year, I'll start off doing the Psalms and Proverbs. And then from there, I'll give the rest of the books of the Bible. All right. All the way till we get to the New Testament. So anyway, it's a phenomenal series. And I recommend everybody to go and check it out. And again, these are one of many different sources that we have in one place on our Patreon. It is a holistic experience when you get there. I mean, you can be entertained for, Morgan Freeman is in here too, Brother Aaron. Morgan Freeman is in here. Denzel Washington is in here. Vanessa Williams is in here. What's his name? Lawrence Fishburne, I believe he's in here. James Earl Jones is in here. And the list goes on. I mean, you name a Black actor from 2005 to 2007, and they're in there. Okay. But yeah, Genesis was superb. Exodus is just phenomenal with Moshe. Man, it's wonderful. And you guys are definitely going to enjoy it. Let me kind of share it on the screen real quick for y'all so you can see. And we'll touch on that a little bit there. So here it is right here, the Patreon. All right. So here in the Patreon, as you can see, we have, and we're trying to break 400, because once we hit 400, we have a laptop that we want to give away for back to school. We're still trying to hit that 400 mark. As soon as we hit 400, we're going to open up or unlock a contest for you to get your children involved, writing an essay of how their set apart experience has changed their lives and the lives of others around them. And, you know, from K to 12, you know, you can have a kindergarten beat out a 12th grader. You know what I'm saying? Me and 2 other people will be vetting out the essays that come in. Well, not essays. Well, I guess you can call them essays. They're really one-page papers, right? Very brief. You got an intro, you got a body, and you got a conclusion, right? Just laying it out, right? Nothing had to be super detailed or anything like that. But if your children want to go wild and write a whole paper, that's totally up to them. But then we'll assess it, and then from there we'll announce the winner on Patreon, and we'll ship you out the laptop, right? They'll ship it out to the parent for the child. They have a brand new HP laptop that's valued at $800. All right. Once we hit our 400 mark on Patreon, right? So, so far on Patreon, as you can see, the total amount of books we have are over. I mean, of posts we have are over 500 posts. You know, like I said, I just added this one here: the Black Jews discovered by Portuguese travelers among the Wolof peoples along the Senegal River from 1495 to 1518 CE. So that is on the Patreon that I added. Also, there's been recent discussions on open theism. I had referenced Clark H. Pinnock as one of the forefathers and forerunners of this particular perspective of theology. So what I wanted to do, because this is something now, conversations are ramping up about this. I even posted a clip of me having a discussion on Sister E's channel with G-Con and Kevin G on this subject matter. Well, G-Con is an open theist. And then we have Kevin G, who's considering open theism, right? And I realized that they didn't understand a lot of the underpinnings of the doctrine of this theology. So I was kind of trying to break it down to them, some of the core points that was trying to be purveyed, and trying to get them to understand it. But this book right here is great. It's called Frustrating God: How Open Theism Gets God All Wrong. It's an excellent book. I encourage everybody to read it so you can be aware of open theism. So in short, what open theism is that open theism at its core believes that if God has foreknowledge of the future and all future events into the end of time, then that will interfere with a genuine relationship with mankind, right? Because if he knows everything that's going to happen, how is that a genuine relationship that you're going to have between the human and divine? It's not going to be very genuine. So they believe that his foreknowledge of everything that's going to happen interferes with that relationship. Therefore, the relationship is not genuine. If that's the case, he cannot be a God of love, right? But there's other nuances to that as well. That's just one of the main core tenets of the subscription of this theology. But I put the book out there so you can read it, get an understanding of it. So if you hear anything like this anywhere, you know how to respond to it, okay? Also, I put up a great website that goes into the it gives you a glossary of theological terms from a educational institute, a prominent educational institute. And this is for people who sometimes get lost in the theological soup of terms. So what this website does is that it lists every term, gives you a layman's definition of it. So that when you hear me use these terms or other people on this channel use these terms or just use the terms in general, you understand what's going on, right? What I try to do is bridge the gap, right, between the knowledge in academia, seminaries, etc., to the common layman, okay? And this website is excellent in doing that, all right? I also created a post for an easy link to access the digital article library that I'm building for Patreon. Also, another site to give you a link to access my ebook library that I've created for Patreon. And any of the book suggestions that you come across that we place up there, you can access those books and read them. So I just gave those links so that way you can go into the entire library. We're close to 300 books on the ebook library, and we're close to, I think, 50 articles on the article library. All right. Now, this right here is the reference guide that I pinned. All right. This way you can access resources. So if you want to get into like parsing the Hebrew and the Greek and all that fun stuff, I always recommend for those who are starters, and I always keep these here because it's always good to go back to the fundamentals when you may forget something. All right. I always recommend these right here. Right. Biblical Greek. Or this side, Biblical Greek by William D. Mounts and Miles Van Pelt for the Biblical Hebrew. These are compact guys. Also, we have Hebrew and Greek for the rest of us. You can see back here. It's all the way up here, right there. All right, and then the other books. Matter of fact, let me show you on the screen again. I try to give you idea of various resources that can help you guys, so that way the things that we say and we talk about does not go over your head, but that you can follow. All right. No problem, Jacko. I'm gonna give you a shout out in 1 second. All right. Let me show you the other resources real quick. Hold on 1 second. Okay. And it's my position that I believe that the biblical languages should be easily accessible to the layman, and that there are tools that allow the layman to access the language so that way they can keep up with the discussion. These two books here, some of my favorites that I recommend to beginners: English Grammar to Ace New Testament Greek, English Grammar to Ace Biblical Hebrew, right? This one is by Mal V. Van Pelt. This one is by Samuel Lamerson, all right? What this does is that a lot of times the reason why people cannot understand foreign languages is because they do not understand English syntax and grammar. And if you understand English syntax and grammar, you know what to look for when regards to grammar and syntax in other languages, right? This one also right here, Greek and Hebrew for the Rest of Us pack, the essentials of biblical Greek and Hebrew. So I would recommend, if you're getting into the language, start first with these two books here. Once you're done with these books, you want to get this source right here, Greek and Hebrew for the Rest of Us pack. Once you're done with that, you want to get these sources here, these series, Biblical Hebrew, Biblical Greek. Now, these are the compact guides to the other, because there's a book, there's a video series, and all of that. Now, the good news is with our Patreon, we allow you to access my library. You get to stream my library of these items and be able to get this knowledge for yourself. Or you could just go out yourself and purchase these resources, right? Because I want everybody in here to be able to fact check anybody that talks about language. Nothing should go over your head. You should have easy access to it. My thing is, like I said, on my Patreon, I give you access to these sources so you can learn the language. The videos we have it on there, the guides we have it on there, everything we have on there. But I'm showing you these things so that way, if you want to go and purchase them yourselves, you have a hard copy as well, not just the digital copy that we offer for streaming on our Patreon, but you have a physical copy yourselves in your home, and you know how to progress. You want to get the English Grammar to Ace Biblical Hebrew, English Grammar to Ace New Testament Greek. From there, you want to go to Greek and Hebrew for the Rest of Us pack, which gives you, and pretty much what that does is that once you understand the English grammar and syntax, now you're ready to get into a very base, essential source that gets you into the foundational and fundamentals or they call it functional part of Biblical Hebrew, Biblical Greek, which I call the fundamentals. And once you have those, then you can work your way up to an actual real course in Biblical Hebrew, Biblical Greek, one by William D. Mounts, who's one of the best New Testament Greek scholars on the planet today, and Miles V. Van Pelt, who's up there with the top scholars in Biblical Hebrew. All right. So the reason why I say this is because when I say things like the book of Job is very difficult to parse out, once you learn the language, you'll see for yourself. Once you start to play around the book of Job, it is incredible. And I was rereading that article I just read from you earlier today, which was phenomenal in touching in on those points. All right. So with that, like I was showing you here on the Patreon, show you a few more things we got on here. So we also have this article called The Matrilineal Principle and Historical Perspective. This is an excellent paper that breaks down where the matrilineal principle comes from in what we call rabbinic Judaism today, right? And I've spoken about that in the past. Another great book called Writing and Rewriting History in Ancient Israel and the Near Eastern Cultures to show you how history was recorded and sometimes redacted, all right, by certain empires, monarchs, etc., right? The Jewish context of Jesus' miracles. So a lot of times people don't understand that miracle working was not something that was estranged from the Jews in the 1st century AD. However, the context in which Jesus did his miracles was very distinct from the things that they had saw at that time. So this is an excellent book that goes into miracle working amongst the Jews and in the first century CE, and how what Jesus did was very distinct in the mix of that, right? Excellent book. The other one I have here is an oldie but goodie called Hebrew for Theologians. Now, I love this book because this book also makes biblical Hebrew accessible. It is a book that came out in the 1980s, and it is a phenomenal book, man. When I read it, I just had a lot of fun reading it. I'm like, wow, if I would have first came into Hebrew and this guy was my professor, I would have picked it up immediately, right? Here's another great source for learning Hebrew. It's called Hebrew for Theologians. And again, you can access my ebook library through the Patreon, and you can take a gander for it yourself. All right. Okay. So with that said, yeah, so Emilion, hopefully I'm saying your name right. Exactly. A lot of that's going on right now. Again, I already spoke my piece on that, and then I'm going back to teaching. I'm not going to get caught up in the fray and the whirlwind of all that stuff going on over there. I'm just going to stay focused over here, and that focus is the Most High. Again, I did speak my piece on this, right? So I did not gloss over it. I did not minimize it. I did not, render it insignificant. I did speak my piece on it. All right. Just so you know, some people may see in a shirt and be like, oh, Divine's a Christian. No. This is called Death to Dogma. This is our Patreon series that's coming up very soon. And this is why we have the shirt that looks like that, because it's a headstone. It's a tombstone. Okay. Death to Dogma. All right. If y'all haven't seen it yet. But anyway, and if you want this shirt, just let me know. Just let me know if you want this shirt. Just email me. I'll give you the details how you can get this shirt and plenty others that we have. All right. So let me give a couple of shout outs. We're going to deal with this word profane and understand what that means. Like, what is a profane fire? And, what I'm saying? Men began to profane the name of the Lord and stuff like that, or whatever. So we're going to get into that in 1 second, because I want to open it up so people can understand that term a lot, because, a lot of times people talk about strange fire. They just spiritualize this term strange fire. But when I ask them, can you tell me what a strange fire is? They can't tell me. It's like, but you're an apostle. You're a doctor so-and-so, apostle so-and-so, reverend so-and-so. And you're over here preaching this whole sermon about strange fire, but cannot define what strange fire is. It's very, very mind-blowing to see that, very, very mind-blowing. Anyway, so let me do shout out to my brother Aaron in the building, Dennis McMillan, Sway 144, Yah Over Money. What's going on? Lisa Anderson, Luke 12:51 Truth, Janae, Will been here, Shalom, Teji, Deuce, Shalom. Yeah, you're right, Teji, man. A lot of drama over there, bro, but you're not gonna find that over here. All right, we stay focused on the mission assignment that Yah has given us. All right, 617, let's get it. Shalom, Miss B, Shalom, Radiant One, Shalom. I'm going to be speaking to you next week, sis. So please hang in there. And thank you for being persistent. I appreciate it and patient. Shout out to Sister Cheryl, Alexander McCaskill, Shalom King, Lifted, what's going on? Jacko Black, Shalom, New Hope, Family Investments, LLC, Barkhot Mishpachah, Shalom to you. The Realness, Shalom, Hustle King T Action, Shalom. It's time doing a Clubhouse. Can I join? Yes, Hustle, you can join Clubhouse. You can email me, text me at the number that's coming across the screen. If you can't get in for whatever reason, and I'll send you an invite. All right. So Ruach and Hamashiach. Okay. So you relocated to Georgia, Lithia Springs. That's awesome. Text me on that number below, or call that number Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Leave a message with our inbound team, and then we'll speak one-on-one and get more details on how we can link up, my brother. All right. All right, shout out to Zeph. Medium Man said, can you enlighten us on the truth behind the dark ages? Not sure what you want me to give you on the dark ages, but I got a book for that. You know the old Apple commercials where it said there's an app for that? There's a book for that. So check it out, family. I'm a bibliophile. I love reading books. I read as many books as I can, and the books that I read, I vet them so I can then recommend them. So when you go into my library on Patreon, these are all books that I recommend, right? But there's a book on everything. So if you really want to learn in this walk, you will be reading extensively if you're following KHM. So be prepared to read. Now, you may want the what they call the spark notes or the cliff notes. So those things I'll do in my lectures. So when I do my lectures, I make references to certain books, and I kind of do that in my lectures. But until I start my lectures again, you guys just gonna have to read. And remember, I told you guys a way so that you can shortcut things, right? You take a screenshot of the cover of a book, take the screenshot of all the contents, color code and highlight all the various contents, and then save it in a file and tag the file with whatever word you want to use to define that source, and do that for every book that you see on the Patreon. So that way, when there, and you can put it in a database, create your own database. You can create an XML sheet if you want. You can create a Word document if you want. You could put it in your cloud storage if you want, whatever the case may be. But the thing is, so whenever you hear a subject matter come up, all you could do is go into that small database you created, type the name of the tag on it. Like, say, for example, the tag is dealing with archaeology, or the tag is dealing with language, or the tag is dealing with a manuscript, or the tag is dealing with, I don't know, sister culture, whatever the case may be, or customs and manners, or something along those lines. Those sources will come up, and then you'll be able to see the table of contents. You'll see where it's at, and then you can go right to that book and just read that chapter to absorb that information. And then you can do so on other books as well, right? That's a great technique if you want to kind of, get the information without having to read hundreds of pages, because some of the books that I recommend and that's on the Patreon is over 1,000 pages, man. I mean, the one I got on the Church Fathers, man, I think that's over 23,000 pages. It's ridiculous. All right. Shout out to Mother Query in the building, Yehuda David, Shalom. Taniqua Williams, Shalom. Ruth Smith, Shalom. Yasun, Shalom. Moshe, the Hebrew, Shalom. Jacolius Jem, Shalom. G Brown, Shalom. Lizzie Liz, Shalom. Dennis McMillian, Shalom. Let me see. Abina Fahi, Shalom. Yes, I'm glad that you're learning. That's awesome. Linda Rick, Shalom. Or Shalom, Sister V, Shalom. Asid Brooks, Shalom. Elephant Man Podcast, Shalom. Rodney Frederick, Shalom. Timothy Harris, Shalom. Let's see. BNY, Shalom. Jimmy Richardson, Ben Yasharal. Yeah. I see what you're saying as far as open theism. I agree. And you want to come on my show and put Paul on trial? I think you meant trial. I guess if that's what you want to do. Jiminy, you my man, you cool peoples. We bang back to back on other, individuals, etc. But I know you don't like Paul. I know you really don't like Paul. And I understand. But I don't know if I'm gonna let you on here just to go and just get in on Paul like that. We'd have to do that or have that discussion with other people on the panel on another channel. Or I may set it up on here. We'll see. You know what I'm saying? And what I will do to make it interesting is I will take the position of a Christian who supports and defends Paul, so we can have a pretty great juxtaposed discussion. All right. Shout out to Yashar Yahuda. So he says, you still teach Esau's not the white man? Yashar, man. Shout out to you, my brother. Look, I already did a whole lecture series. Go check it out if you haven't. That lecture series has 160,000 views or whatever. So go check it out on Esau if you want to know my position on Esau. Right now, I've updated some information since then, but I would say 75% of it is still on point in regards to my position on Esau. All right. Shout out to Malak Hazak, Shalom King, Dale H, Shalom. Let's see. Who else we got on here? Shout out to Cesar Rodriguez, Shalom. Yvette Powell, Shalom. Jonathan McCullough says, hey, brother, can you tell me the ramifications of rape and what rape is according to the Bible? I'm not understanding what the Bible says about it. The Bible's pretty clear about rape. If it's not to you, then give me the verse you want to analyze and we can do that. Okay. Layla Godol, that's what Jordan's Cadet says. Shalom. Mother Query, Shalom. Manika Williams, Shalom. Let's see. I apologize. Shalom. What's going on? Derek Israel, Shalom. So Derek Israel, again, sounds similar to Jiminy and asks me, what is my position on Paul? If you want to know my position on Paul, I'll drop the link in the chat. I did a whole video on it. Okay. Let me drop the link in the chat for you. Hold on. All right, so you want to know my position on Paul? I'm going to give it to you right now. There it is. Take some time if you're serious, if you want my position, because I don't have the time to do a whole lecture with you on here. All right. So here's the video, and I give you my perspective on Paul. All right. Shout out to Sister Zadika Shemuel in the building. Shalom. He said, I can't read your name. You're right. I can't read the name. That's Ethiopic script. It is Amharic, if I'm not mistaken, which is a Semitic language, by the way. But I knew a little bit of it. I did know a little bit of it, but no, I cannot make that out off the top of my head. I had to go back to my grammar book in order to do that. All right. Shout out to D Will. What's going on? You Taylor 777. Shalom. Hassad, my brother Hassad. Shalom. What's going on, King? Let me see. Who else? I think that's everybody, man. I think that's everybody. Shout out to my brother Kevin G's in the building. Says I'm not going to stay tuned because I'm in an anime mood. But much love to you, bro. I think that means he's watching a lot of anime right now. I don't want to be interrupted. I understand. Shout out to my brother Derek Yisrael. Thank you for the donation, King. I appreciate that. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I do have some good sources on Amharic and Ge'ez. I think I need to go back into that, because I know before, when I was learning to read it, I was reading the Ethiopic version of the Book of Enoch, and I had to get into my Ge'ez Amharic to kind of my lexicon and grammar book to kind of start, and again, I wasn't trying to parse out the whole thing, but I went to certain passages, used my grammar book and my lexicon, and used that to kind of decipher some stuff. So it was fun. I got to go back and do that. So Ras and Bessa Tafara. Okay. Shalom, my brother. Shalom. Thank you for that. Sung Tag Pro. Shalom. What's going on? All right. So we'd love to see a series about the theological salvic ramifications for the doctrine of the Trinity. That is a great idea. Great idea. Because I did speak on the Trinity before. Matter of fact, if you go on this channel, you'll see that I put the Trinity on trial. And those for you who are part of the Patreon, I did another session where I was teaching Israelites objectively what the Trinity is. And matter of fact, on Clubhouse, I've addressed it several times as well. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Dash Sharab in the building. All right, so I'm gonna deal with your scripture, Jonathan, and then I'm gonna get into when we talk about profane, like how do you profane the Sabbath day? How do you profane the Sabbath day? What does that mean, right? What is profane or strange fire, right? What does that mean? All right. So let me address that, Jonathan. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 28 to 29. All right. Let me address that. Deuteronomy 22, 20. And it's interesting because I was in another discussion where somebody made a meme about the Torah law that says that if two men are fighting and the wife of one man grabs the genitals of the other man and crushes it, then the penalty is that her hand is to be cut off. Now, people were looking at that and said, damn, the Bible's crazy and all this other stuff. But it's interesting that they say that, but it's obvious that they're not familiar or they're not jurisprudent of American law, right? Or the penal code. They obviously don't have no clue about that, because there's a lot of stuff that's on these books that are similar in nature to that. Also, whenever an incident like this happens, you have to have a counsel that judges the case, right? So the penalty that you can apply, like for example, in America, there's felonies and misdemeanors, and certain felonies have a gauge of time that the judge, through his discretion, or jury, or judge for sentencing, and the jury when they do the verdict, to determine based on the circumstance. You have aggregating factors and you have mitigating factors. Mitigating means you lessen or you give a case to lessen the penalty, that you receive for the charge or your conviction, and the aggravating, the things that you use to inflate or heighten the amount of time. So when they were, dispensing justice and they had to rule justly based on the law, discretion was also given depending on the circumstances. How do I know that? Because we have several examples in Torah that showcase that. All right. And we don't have a lot of evidence of severed hands during this time period in which the Israelites lived, which means these cases were very few, number one, or number two, the people were very obedient. Same thing as if somebody is breaking into your home, or if you get into if you get into a fight with somebody, you have to stand your ground law in certain states. But also, when you are fighting somebody, you can only perform self-defense based on the amount of force that's being used against you. And if you use excessive force, then it becomes something more than just self-defense. People are not studying these laws, which I understand. And at the same time, they're trying to view the ancient Near East in the 21st century lens. That's not how you do proper scholarship. That's not how you do a proper analysis of the text. And that's why people get so estranged from the text, is they don't understand it. And it's unfortunate. All right. So Junior said, I never got back to you on Patreon. I got a couple of other messages that are still waiting to be read on Patreon. And I get tons of messages all the time on Patreon. So if I miss your message, I apologize. It's not intentional. So just forward me the message again. All right. All right. So let's deal with Deuteronomy chapter. Let me see. Deuteronomy chapter 22 verses 28. 22 to 28. All right, let's do it. Deuteronomy 22, 28. Oh, shoot. I think I did this. 22 verse 28. All right, let's take a look at it. All right. All right. Now, it's funny because sometimes people who ask that question tend to be trolls. And I'm not saying that you are one, but they tend to come in here and make this big spiel about rape and how is rape defined in Israelite culture. And they say stuff because I guess they think it's a got you moment, but it's really not. It just goes to show that those people who make these troll comments don't know what they're talking about, right? But we're going to deal with this, right? So what I'm first going to do with you is I'm going to go through it with you in the English. Then I'm going to show you it interlinear and go with you through the Hebrew. And then we're going to use the free Hebrew lexicons that's on this site. And then I can bring up the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, or the DBL of semantic language, DBL semantic domain of biblical languages, Hebrew, which I have on my Logos software. And then I can get the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew by Klein and my Accordance Dictionary. All right. So if we need to go there, right? Nevertheless, the key thing is, if people are trying to make this a got you moment, it's not going to be that on me, because the joke's going to be on them. All right. Shout out to Black Avon and Building Shalom. Iasus Cristal, Jonas Cadets putting Greek up in there. Jacob Israel, Shalom. I work in a federal building. Is it to take a COVID test to keep is it okay? I think that's what you're saying, to take a COVID test. Yes, it's definitely okay. It's either that or you get the vaccine. So that's the lesser of two evils. And I actually have a video on here of me taking the COVID test for anybody who's unfamiliar about that. But it's a video that I did where I used myself as an example of taking the COVID test. So you can check that out on here if you want. All right. All right. So Jason Brundage, Shalom King, said, I finally caught a live session. Much love, family. Much love to you as well. We got almost 120 people in here with no advertisements, no promotions. I just started to go live late at night, almost a whole hour ago. And now we got the family up in here. All right. So let's address this. All right. So let's read this. All right. In the NIV, it says, if a man happens to meet a virgin who was not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, NLT, again, NIV, NLT are what you call dynamic equivalency translations, which means the translator's philosophy is an attempt to translate the Hebrew thought for thought. Okay, so it's not word for word, it's thought for thought. However, the ESV right below it, the Berean Study Bible and the King James Bible attempts to do what's called a formal equivalency translation. And that, as best as they can, they try to do a word for word translation as much as possible, right? So anyway, it says in the NLT, suppose a man has intercourse with a young woman who is a virgin, but is not engaged to be married if they are discovered. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, Berean says, if a man encounters a virgin who is not pledged in marriage, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are discovered. And the KJV says, if a man finds a damsel that is a virgin, anytime you see italics in the King James, that means that's added for proper syntax and grammar, but that doesn't exist in the original language, right? which is not betrothed, and lay hold of her and lie with her, and they be found. All right. So let's just see what this is about. Again, remember, this is designed to be a deterrent for a man that seizes a woman, lies with her, and is discovered. So let's read it. All right. Verse 29 says, then the man who lay with her must pay the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, and she must become his wife because he has violated her. He must not divorce her as long as he lives. So check it. The key thing, and people will say, is that, oh, you see, the man, he rapes the woman, and upon raping her, that's what they're saying now. Check it out. He gets to keep her. So a man just got to rape him, pay money, and keep her. What kind of mindset do people have? But perverted minds, they think like this, but it's okay. This is what perverted minds think. Let's go into the Hebrew, right? So here we're on BibleHub.com, which is the free Bible study software resource. And up here, you want to click on interlin, and interlin will give you the interlinear. Interlinear pretty much is going to give you the Hebrew that's here. Well, won't even let me highlight. That's crazy. The Hebrew that's here, Ki Yimsa, Is Na'ar. Na'ar is there in brackets, but we can match it against the logos. Breakdown: Na'ara Betula Asher Lo Orasa Utepasa Wesakab Ima We Nin Sa'u. And then you have to hit this arrow over here to go to the next one, right? Now it also parses it out. So you would have to understand diacritic marks, prefixes, suffixes, infixes, etc. What we're going to do is look up this keyword, because again, people are trying to look at this and say, well, see, he raped her. Okay. So the word we're looking here is ute. U, right here, your wav, dagesh, u, which means and, or conjunction and. In this case, it can also form as a conjunctive wav because they share what afterwards. Your tav here, right, which is your third person, masculine or feminine, depending upon the context. In this case, because we have the suffix he with a dagesh in the middle of it, which we call mapik or whatever in the middle of it. This makes it her, third person feminine singular, right? However, it's a conjunctive wav, but it's also in what we call the cow stem, but it's a conjunctive perfect, right? Which means so cow stem is your simple active action. When we look at the shoresh of verbal stems, the simple active action. So if I have a ball and I cast it, I can say I threw the ball. If it's in the PL, that means I took the ball and I gunned the ball. You know what I'm saying? I gunned the ball. The nifal is your passive, etc. So in this case, it's a cow stem. It's not the PL stem. Keep that in mind. It's not the PL stem. PL would indicate force. That's not what we see here. This is in our cow stem, right? Conjunctive perfect, which means it's part of the narrative of ongoing action, but it did something that occurred in the past as a past event. Third person feminine singular. All right. And he seizes her. He seizes her. So we have the her here for the suffix. The tav here gives you your second person, masculine, feminine, singular. In this case, because we're talking about a man, if a man and ish, a man, so he's the subject. So, and he, her, and the action, and he takes her, or what we say in New York, he runs game on her. He manipulates her, right? This is not the PL stem, which means he forces the action. So here you have your strong that's key to it, right? And it means to lay hold of, to wield, right? Lay hold of, to wield. But the key thing is, when you're looking at verbs, you can't just pick any definition that's there. You got to look at the verbal stem. In this case, it's in the cow stem, to lay hold of, to wield, right? Here's your various places where you see things in the cow stem, all right? So let me give you, it shows you Deuteronomy 22:28 here, but then you also have Isaiah 3:6. Let's see what Isaiah 3:6 says, right? When a man takes hold of his brother in the house of his father, man takes hold of his brother in the house right here. Hold of his brother in the house of his father. All right. And the clothing that you have, the ruler should be, let his rulers be under your power. Right. Again, this is in your cow stem. Simple action. However, right, lay hold of, seize. We have all these other words, right? We have grasp, which it could be as well. Grasp, use skillfully, like grasping a sword. You have your nifal stem, which is your passive. You have another cow stem if it's syntax. Here's your PL stem right here that thou mayest grasp with the hands. See that? And this is from an older dated lexicon. This is the Brown Driver Briggs. Today you can get the enhanced Brown Driver Briggs, which makes some revisions, but it's still a good one. It's based off of the Gesenius, which is a much older one, but there's more modern ones. So you can look this up, right? Nevertheless, the way that this should have been translated is, and he, you see this, all of those who play, she caught, right? A man that has caught her and he lies with her. In what sense? And now manipulates her, lays hold of her mind, of her essence, who she is, runs game on her, bags her. That's what we say in New York. You bag her. You know what I mean? And he lies with her. So under false pretenses, he captivates her and he lies with her and they're found out. Okay? What happens? You read the next thing. Okay? Lay it out here. Wait. Natan, Haish, Haso, Hasokeb, Ima, Labi, Hanaar, Han Naara, Hamisim, Kasep, Welo, Tihye, Leisa, Tahat, Asher, In Na. Again, you're my peak right there. Lo, Yukal. This is Sal Leha, Kal, Yama, right? Suffix, right? Gives you his days, Yam, Yama, his days. Now check it, right? Then he shall give the man who lay with her. Now the key thing is the young woman. Remember, we go to the previous verse. We have the word here, very important, betula, a young woman who has not known a man. A hyphen has not been broken or pierced through. All right. A virgin was very valuable back then. So if a man is running game on a woman and then lies with her and they're found out, he has to pay the father shekels of money, 50, and she shall be his leisha. This is your inseparable preposition, lamed, to isha. So he shall be towards the wife, his wife, tahat asher ina, because he has what? Humbled her. Here's the key thing. Now, one thing is the act of laying hold of her, running game on her, bagging her. Like, yo, shorty, man, you look good, blah, blah, I want to get to know you, whatever the case may be. I don't know what these youngins doing nowadays because my game was fly. But anyway, so I don't know what these youngins doing nowadays. So runs game on her, then say, yo, blah, blah, gas up or whatever. Then he lays with her, right? He devalues her, right? And they're discovered. The reason why this happens because the key word here, he has humbled her. This is in your PL perfect stem. Remember your PL, your in na, right? This right here, this verb is what we would call in Hebrew a weak verb, right? Ina, right? You have your shewat top, you have your kametz underneath the nun, your dagesh in the middle of nun. This is in a PL stem, perfect tense because there's no modifier prefixed. Third person masculine singular because he has humbled her. How? We have my peak here in the center, which doubles your ha sounds, gives it a closing ha, right? Your ina, na, close the ha. Ina, instead of ina, you close the ha. So, and then you have the suffix hey, which indicates her. So therefore, it's in the PL perfect third person masculine singular. Why? Because in the perfect tense, there's no performative prefix to put it in the imperfect tense. It's the PL, so it is the forceful. He has humbled her. What do you mean humbled her? He has went into her, broken her hymen, and she is no longer a virgin. Okay, the act that he has done has humbled her. But let's look into that verb a little further. Right, to be bowed down or afflicted or oppressed, treated harshly, dealt with harshly, causing one to submit. When he lays with her, she is submitting to his will. Doesn't say it was rape. It's not what it's saying there. It's not saying it's rape. Because we're going to see what that is. If you actually read the context, it actually outlines rape as well. But in this case, he has humbled her. He has penetrated her. He has caused her to submit to his will in the act of sex. And because of this, now he has to pay 50 shekels to the father, and he cannot divorce her. So the key thing is This prevents young men from running game on young women that are virgins. Because if you run game on her and you humble her or you penetrate her and you're discovered, you got to pay money to the father. And if you don't pay money to the father, that is a capital offense, and you can be tried and punished through capital punishment for that. And not only that, now you got to stay with that woman. You know, in our community, if that's the case, I bet you a lot of these young men won't be running game on these women because they got to wife all these women. And then once you wifey them, after you do that, you got to give up money that you probably don't have. So you're going to be in debt to the father. And then now she's your wife. And now you got to provide all the things that comes with a wife. That's important. You cannot divorce her. However, there's something very interesting in this verse that I think I should point out too, because if I don't point out, people are gonna be weird about it. So let's check it out. Let me show you something real quick. Check it out, right? Just check it out, right? So if you hit verse 29, what you're going to see on the right, cross references, right? You see Exodus 22:16, Deuteronomy 22:28, Deuteronomy 22:30, right? Very interesting. Let me show you this. Right? Deuteronomy 22:19 and 24, 21-14. All right. Now check it out. Let's go here. All right. And you'll see, check it out. Watch this. Verses 16-17. If a man seduces a virgin, let's go in and look at that. Let's go and check that out. Right. And if a man, what's that word there? Entices. Now, this is the PL stem, imperfect, right? Meaning that it's an action that started in the present and is ongoing, or action that will take place in the future. Sometimes you can get an infinitive, where it means something that's ongoing. Anytime you put an S suffix on an English verb, it's the infinitive. That means an action that keeps on going, right? And if he entices, the man entices, right? A man, and if he entices a man who a virgin, betelo, again, a woman that has not known a man, ashelo orasa, and she's betrothed. Now, this is a different situation because it says, in this case, she is betrothed. That means she is with another man, right? Because the other man that she's betrothed through is the Baal. I went over this before. He is the head of household. Baal was a common term for a husband. Matter of fact, Sarai called Abram Baal. He is her Baal, or her master, whatever the case may be, right? And lies with her. This is an account stem. Right? Surely he shall pay the bride price. That's that 50 shekels of silver for her to be his wife. I'm sorry. I read this all wrong. I didn't even look at the negative privative. Lo orasa. That's what I meant to say. And it's not betrothed. That means she's not engaged. I'm sorry. I read that really fast. And it's not engaged. So this lines up with your Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28-29. Here in Exodus 22:16, you have to cross-reference, because the cross-reference gives you more details, and this is what extends the semantic range and value of various words in the text based on how words are used within a particular context. So this is a play on of each other. So more information is, and if a man entices or runs game, let's see what that word is. The word entices. The man is spacious, or he's wide and open, or he enlarges, or he seduces his will, or extends or enlarges his will on her through manipulation. In this sense, it's more forceful, the extension of will. It's not physical. It's more forceful, the way he runs game on her, right? To lie with her, right? Okay. Cow stem, the participle right here, which we have is mote, right? And from Proverbs 20:19, possibly one open as to lips. Let me get a little bit more deeper than that. It could also mean deceives her, entices her, runs game on her. So, right, deceit is more emphatic. I think deceit would be really good. So he deceives the virgin, lies with her. Now, check this out. Not only is he paying the bride price, but look at this. If utterly refuses who? The father to give her to him. So this additional stipulation is the father can say, nah, I'm not giving my wife to you. This guy's wilding. Nah. So the father can also say, no, you can't have my daughter, right? It says he shall pay money, the bride price according to verse. So if the father refuses, he's still got to pay money, but he can't stay with the daughter. So when people over here saying the Bible condones rape, what kind of wildness are they talking about? What is they talking about? LD, I'm not going to do this with you tonight, sis. Check your accent. I cannot check my accent, man. I'm too New York. BX in the building. All right? All right. All right. Let me fall back. Let me fall back. Let me fall back. Cesar Rodriguez, I used to. And again, when we do our classes, we will be going over Hebrew in the classes as well. But I don't teach formal biblical Hebrew anymore. I do have courses on the Patreon. If you're interested, you sign up, go to the pinned post, and you can click the link that'll take you right to our biblical languages resources for both Hebrew and Greek. And you can go through those courses and learn. And again, I showed you resources as well that you can learn on your own. And if you have questions while you're going through the language, you can email me, you can inbox me, you can text me, and I will help you with it, which I've been doing. All right. Here's the other resource as well. All right. I want to make the language accessible to laymen so nobody can run game on you. People will run game on you, tell you this is what this means, this is what this means, because they know the language. So I'm making it accessible for you so you can fact check and authenticate what it is that that's being said. All right. So anyway, so what I'm simply saying is the issue is when you got people that come in here and say the Bible condones rape, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because what I say to them is, okay, you're using a translation, right, that seems to play in to your agenda. However, when we go into the original language, it's a much different story. And every time I take them into the original language, they can't parse it out. They don't know what the hell is going on, right? And that goes to show that they are simply have a beef with the text, and it's based on a false premise or false notion that their understanding of the text is simply at surface level based on a crude English translation. Okay? So, player precepts. I like that, Jiminy. I like that. I like that. You know what I'm saying? So nonetheless, what I'm simply trying to do, and again, you know, I can read the Hebrew. You know, I teach the Hebrew. I got an intermediate literacy level in biblical Hebrew. I'm not an expert. I'm not advanced. However, I plan at some point to get to that point. I know enough of it to point out nuances, to parse things out, and read those articles, those academic articles that be going heavy into the text, and heavy into the language, right? I can keep up and follow, and I learn new stuff that way as well. So whatever I learn, I give it to y'all, and I give you resources to fact check with me or anybody else is saying. That's the best thing I can do, right? So again, this is not rape in the sense that you're thinking rape, like, oh, he grabbed her, he forced himself upon her. Now that's my wife. Now you mine. Nah, that's not what's going on here, bro. That's not what's going on here. Beta males think like that. That's not what's going on here. This was a deterrent. A deterrent. All right. All right. So, I don't know what you meant by that, Kevin G. And you use hell. Do I sense a mature scholar that reached a tolerance level for BS? Possibly. I think so. That is BS, and it pisses me off when I hear it. All right. All right. So I want to go back to I don't know what Jordan's talking about. Jordan is crazy, bro. So there was another inquiry that came in. I don't recall. So he says, isn't it rape? Now, rape is a statute in American law. When people think rape, they're thinking it based on a 21st century jurisprudence of American law. It's not the same way as back then. For example, if a man forces himself on a virgin, like physically forces himself on a virgin, that is a capital offense worthy of death. But if he runs game on her and she consents, and it says, and they are found out, not if his actions are found out. Whenever you see they, you know, they, which is the third person plural, they, when they are found out, meaning that she consented. He ran game and she consented. When they are discovered, see, it's not rape when you say, and they are discovered. When it says, when his act has been discovered, that's how you know it's rape. But this is a consensual thing, Okay, it's totally different. All right. Shout out to Karima, lyricist in the building. Frederick A in the building. Shalom. My brother, Do It for the Nation in the building. Shalom. Scott Garrett Headley. Shalom. Of Yod Hey Wafe. Shalom. All praise to the Most High, my brother. I'm doing my best for the family, yo. Anytime. And excuse my New York accent. All right. That's just the way I'm bred. I'm sorry. It's just ingrained in me. I try my hardest to get rid of it, but it always surfaces. I guess it's going to be in me until I die. I'm sorry. So sometimes I know I can be very, what do they call, articulate, right? I can be very articulate and I can speak without the accent, but it never escapes me. It has to come out. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry. All right. That's why sometimes when I speak to people in academia, a lot of times I talk to them like I'm a blue blood, and I do understand the syntax of the language, but I don't like talking like that. That's just not me. You feel me? If I got to move in those circles, I'll do it. But I like talking like this. I talk with my hands. Usually I'm from New York. You know what I mean? So you're gonna hear the New York when I do the Hebrew, you're gonna hear some New York in it. Like, wait a second, you're gonna hear my accent in Hebrew. One time I was speaking Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, on a Clubhouse session. And the guy, he's from Israel, but I think he used to be in America or whatever. And we was going on Hebrew. He's like, yo, you from New York, right? I'm like, yeah, how'd you know? He said, man, I hear the New York all in your Hebrew. Oh, man. Yo, you tell us 77 says, do you? That's New York act. You tell her, you from New York? You must be from New York. You must be from New York. But anyway, it makes things more entertaining when you hear somebody talk like they're from New York instead of some, uppity, self-righteous, Hebrew scholar. You got to talk from New York, man. LD should know, she's from New York too. Anyway, so check it out. So the key thing is when they are discovered, it's not rape when they are discovered because she consented. All right. Okay. So let me move past that. All right. Let me get the profane. Give you an example of the profane, right? What I'm going to do is give y'all a little quiz. Very interesting little quiz, right? Because let's see. Let's go to Shemot, or Exodus chapter 31 and verse 14. But let's go to 31. It's one of my favorite scriptures right here. All right. Let me share my screen. Here we go. All right. We're going to go to verse 13. Tell the Israelites, surely you must keep my Sabbaths, for this will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so that you may know that I am the Most High who set you apart. Keep the Sabbath, for it is set apart to you. Anyone who profanes it must surely be put to death. Whoever does any work on that day must be cut off from among his people. So what I'm going to ask the audience is, tell me, this word profanes, whoever profanes, they have the word here for desecrate, right? You have defileth. But what does this word profane mean? Anyone who profanes it, what does that mean? I'm going to give y'all a minute to tell me what that means, all right? Shout out to Eric Tinsley, said BK in the house. Y'all are funny, man. So tell me what profane means, all right? Tell me what profane means. It's going to be very interesting when you see what that word actually is. And I don't know how much detail I'm going to get into it tonight because I'm about to get off this live. I didn't plan to be very long in here. But nonetheless, tell me what the word profane means. Thank you, my brother, Bruce Smith. The Patreon is flames. www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. When you invest in us, we invest right back in you. We got so many resources in it. It's going to take you years to get through all of it. And we're still adding to it weekly. So it's going to be, some of it is easily consumable, but these books and these articles will take you some time to read, go through it, and understand, right? We try to give you as much as you can. Jiminy said his wife was from Crown Heights. That's what's up. There we go. Thank you, Jermaine. To make it common. Woo! I like that. All right. Abanawa Hawa Shinawa says to do the opposite, the exact opposite, which means instead of setting it apart, you make it common. So if you profane that day, you're making it or treating it like it's any other day. What do you do on any other day? You work, you buy and sell, etc., etc. But the Sabbath is set apart where you don't work, you refrain from buying and selling, etc. So profaning is to make it common. So let's get into the lexicon. And again, I'm just going to deal with this lexicon. If anybody wants me to go to additional lexicons, let me know. I got 6 of them on deck, right? But I try to stay within the, well, you know what? Those of you who have the Logos, the paid logo software and paid accordance software from the Patreon, because on the Patreon, I give you free access to paid accordance and paid Logos Bible study software that has lexicons on them, right? So if you guys have that software, you can double check these free public domain lexicons. They're not, well, they're free, freely accessible to the paid ones in the software that I have, okay? So let's go and look this up so we can see more detail, because anytime you see this word profane, you can get an idea what it means, but the word is not, in Hebrew, is not what you think it is. Let's check it out, right? Check it out. You see how good it is that we can flow, we can teach, we can build without the trolls. Yes, I know sometimes y'all don't want me to deal with the trolls. Okay. So anyway, those of you who are familiar with Hebrew, we're looking right here. This is the root word. All right. What is that word in Hebrew? If y'all can see my screen, maybe I need to zoom in some more, even though it looks 400% zoomed in on my side. What is that word? Hey, lamed, lamed. What's that word there in Hebrew? Hey, lamed, lamed. I'll give you an example. That same cognate is in Arabic. What is that word right there? Hey, lamed, lamed. You ever heard that word hallelujah? Hallelujah. You ever heard that word? Shout out to S. McGee in the building. Shalom King. What's going on? Halal, right? Halal. Now, when you think about halal, you normally think about it in a positive sense, like to give praise, right? Or halal food in Arabic, right? However, that's not the context here, right? So let's look up that word halal, because it says everyone who profanes it. Now, obviously, if you're praising a day, you shouldn't be put to death. What you being put to death for? It's like, yo, it's a set apart day. I'm praising it. That's not what it means. Let's go in and see a little further. All right. And again, next time somebody preaches a whole sermon on strange fire, just ask them, what does that mean? Now we get into that strange fire real quick, but let's check this out. Let's check this out. All right. It means what? To bore or pierce. Halal. 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 So halal means to bore, to pierce. Hollow, cave. Because cave, you have to when something is hollow, it's bored out, it's bored in the inside to make space inside, or a cave is cut into, sheathed, hollowed out. So the cow stem is my heart is pierced or wounded, right? Literally, one has pierced my heart. The pu'al stem, very interesting. So you have PL, pu'al. PL is the active, pu'al is the passive. Pu'al stem, and in the infinitive construct, hui there, he, infinitive construct, as in Psalm 77, it is my piercing, my womb, my woe. Infinitive means it keeps going. Construct means it relies on something else. In this case, it relies on the hui, right? So, or he. We say he or he. Depends on how you want to say it. But in this sense, when it is in a construct form and it relies on hui there, it means it's in an infinitive as a construct, and it's a piercing, something that's going on, like something that's constantly afflicting you, a wound that you continuously have, a sickness that you have to bear constantly. PL is the intensive, right, in the hand of the ones wounding you, right? Another pu'al, and when it's a participle, in the sense where kereb is used, being pierced by a sword, being pierced by the sword, That's your pu'al intensive, right? You have your poel, which is a play on of your pu'al, and the perfect third person feminine singular with barihah or bariyah. Very interesting. Your furtive patak there, right? Nahash, yado, or this is in Job now. Now, again, this is when we're talking about the book of Job, how the book of Job is weird. I mentioned that earlier. It's weird, right? This is in the case of Job, right? Ho la la, yado, nahash, bara'ah. Bara'ah. That's Job. Weird stuff. If you parse it out further, you'll see why it's weird. But nonetheless, his hand pierced the fleeing serpent. Another poal stem. A verb, the nominative. Play the pipe or pipes in regards to what? A hollowed out instrument. Wait, check it. Heathful stem, right? Causative stem. Unite, loosen, open. See Arabic. Is your nephal stem in the perfect? We have various examples of it. Imperfect. Now, what we're trying to do now is find Exodus right here, 31 and 14, and see which one here does it fit. There's another PL because this is a common word in the biblical Hebrew. Very common word, right? So we have the word profane right here. Leviticus 19:8, for he has profaned the set apart thing, right? So let's look what it says, right? When we get to another element of it, defile or pollute, as in Genesis 49 and 4, 1 Chronicles 5 and 1, of a woman. Interesting. Leviticus 19:29, do not prostitute. Leviticus 21:9, Leviticus 21:15, ceremonially profane the altar by a tool, the name of the Most High, defiles or profanes his inheritance by giving over something. Matter of fact, let's make this easier, right? Let's get Exodus 31 and 14 in the Blue Letter Bible. Let me show it to you. This lays it out a bit more easier for those who's reading, because maybe what I'm going through is a little bit much, but you know, it could be a little bit much. It definitely could be a little bit much, right? So again, we have our root word here. Hey, lamed, right? This is in a PL. It's a PL participle. It's in the active, right? So let's click on it and see what it is right here. Anyone that followeth, right? Halal, the word halal, right? Very interesting word. So when you say praise, you know what you're doing? I'm gonna show you something deep, right? When you use halal to mean praise, you are literally setting up an appeal, setting up a form of thanksgiving or praise to the Most High, and it pierces through the dome and enters into his domain. That's a whole sermon right there. That's a whole sermon right there. Check it. Hold on. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. You can praise the Most High, and that is when your voice is lifted up in a form where it pierces through the dome of Shemayim that we see, and it enters into the domain of the Most High. I'm going to stop there. It bores a hole past anything that tries to suppress your voice of thanksgiving and praise to the Most High Yah. It could be anything. It could be negativity in the atmosphere. It could be spiritual forces in the atmosphere. It could be people saying negative things about you. But when you understand how to pierce or bore out a hole into this atmosphere here to make its way on the lap of the Most High in his throne, you just did something. You know what? Let me leave that. I wasn't trying to preach tonight. I'm gonna let y'all meditate on that. All right. Let me get back. Let me get back. Let's get back to what we're trying to go to. All right. So check it. Right. To profane, defile, pollute, desecrate, nephal stem. We're not working with the nephal stem. The PL stem is what we're working with. To profane, make common. Defile, pollute. So when you make it common, you violate the covenant and you dishonor your relationship with the Creator. Because he said, this is a sign between me and you forever. Olam, forever. To treat as common. That's important. You know what? Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Very interesting thing. I'm going to show you something, right? I'll show you something. Let me show you something. Let's pull it up. Let me see if this is what I'm looking for. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. That's not the one I'm looking for. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on one second. Let me see. It's not the one I was looking for, but hold on one second. I think I'll be able to find it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. You know what? I think I want to keep that there. Hold on. I think I want to keep it there. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm going to show you something interesting here. All right. I'm going to show you something interesting. Matter of fact, this wasn't the verse I was looking for, but I'm going to show you something. Hold on one second. Let me show it to you. All right. So let's go down. These are the sons of Aaron, strange fire, right? This word here, zur. Zayin, resh, he, chametz. Zayin, chametz, resh, chametz, he. This is the form that it takes in the verse. However, its lexical form is zur. Your zayin, wav with your dagesh, which gives you the sound, the u sound, and the resh. This is zara. This is zor. This is the root, right? So let's go into and look into it, right? This is to be strange, a stranger, become a strange, another stranger, foreigner, enemy, loathsome, nephal, to be estranged, to be a stranger, to be one alienated, a primitive root, to turn aside, hence to be a foreigner, strange, or profane. Specifically, if it's in the active participle, to commit adultery, come from another manner, place, fana, go away, etc. So what does it mean to put up a strange fire? That means you are setting a fire that is outside of the accordance or regulations or stipulations laid out in the mitzvah or the law of how the fire is supposed to be kindled. You did it in the format that you felt like you wanted to be doing it because you alienated the custom that was supposed to be done according to a stipulation based on how you wanted to do it. Deep. That's just strange fire. Okay? There's nothing wrong with the fire. The fire ain't no different color like blue fire, nothing like that. I've heard people preach a sermon that said the fire could have possibly have been another color like yellow or something like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, what? Oh, good looking, Seth. The prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds, Until it come nigh, he will not be comforted and will not depart till the Most High shall behold to judge righteously and execute judgment. That is a fire verse. That's the haymaker. That is the alley-oop before the poster dunk. You know what a poster dunk is? I dunked on you so hard. They took a snapshot. Now I got it on my wall somewhere. That's it. Fire. They told me it was blue flames or green flames. I've heard all types of crazy stuff. It was strange fire because what's the other one they say? It was strange fire because they were burning, like they was giving offerings to Molech or some craziness. I'm like, what is you talking about? No, it was something that was done alien of the stipulations and regulations on how to perform a ceremonial fire on an altar. That's it. They chose to do it their way. That's how they profaned it. They've alienated the custom. That's it. So again, it's just strange how people try to do all types of weird stuff with the text. I'm just telling you, don't let them get you down like that. We can't let them hold you down like that. Nonetheless, I'm about to end here. All right. I think that so let me see. You said, what do you call that level of study of the text? You talking about like when we're talking about the Deresh method? Is that what you're talking about? I would say it's at the Rish level. It's at the surface level. If you just learn the language, you know, that's pretty much what's going on there. But the translators added the word strange. They could have said estranged, or they could have said alien. That would have been a little bit more exact. All right. They burned the wrong incense recipe. They definitely did something wrong, or warming up already cooked food. So as far as cooking on the Sabbath, if cooking on the Sabbath requires effort, like a huge effort, not like taking something out the fridge and put it in the microwave and hitting start, that's not effort. If you have an electric stove, there's no fire kindled. It's push a button, heats up, push another button, right? That's effortless. In times past, however, they had to gather sticks. That's work. They had to rub the sticks together and create fire. That's work. Then they got to set everything up. That's work. Then they got to put the food in there and cook it from scratch. That's work. It's different than what we have today. Today we have modern conveniences that removes fire out of the equation altogether, right? So it's different. So you'd have to perform what they call halakha, meaning that you'd have to look at the principles of the text and see if what you do in modern times, which is outside the context of the text, if it still applies. And in a sense where it requires an effort at that time to cook, if you put effort into cooking on the Sabbath, then yes, you're violating the Sabbath. But if you pop something in the microwave and pressing a button, there's no flame being kindled, no sticks being gathered. It takes a few minutes and you can eat food. However, best practices is, if you can, you heat food up overnight. Put it in a slow cooker or something like that, so it's warm the next day, so you can just take it and eat it, enjoy it. And what they did at that time, if they needed to eat on the Sabbath day, sometimes they fasted, sometimes they need to eat, they will preserve the food in advance, right? So that way it's readily accessible for them to consume the next day, whether it's fruits, nuts, you know, milk. Sometimes they drink milk, fruits, nuts, milk, wine. Okay. If it's meat, the meat would be preserved, it would be salted or smoked or something along those lines. All right. So that's the thing that we have to understand. When you profane the Sabbath, you cook on that day like you cook any other day. It's like, all right, whatever, it's a regular day and just cook. But if you're preserving your food in advance and you're eating them on that day, or you're making a quick effort to heat the food up to eat it because you're hungry, that is, again, from my perspective, that is not profaning the Sabbath. But if you're making an effort, if you're taking hours, you're cooking food, you know, chopping meat up and heating meat up and taking food, slicing up food, that now you're performing work. Now you're profaning the Sabbath. If the way you perform it is the same way that you do it any other day, then you've made it common. All right. Then it is no longer the Sabbath day. And now you have violated the covenant with the Most High. All right. All right. Kevin G says, if you get a chance, can you peep my question? I'm gonna end off on this. Let me see if I can find your question. Let's see. No problem, my brother. I'm glad you like that. Let me see. What's your question? All right, here we go. Thank you for the donation, Kev. Question for you, Divine. I heard from an apologist that Isaiah 54:5, where it says, "For your maker husband" is plural. Can you verify this? Yes, I can definitely verify this, right? So what we can get is the Biblica Hebraica Stuttergensia, and that is the academic standard that is derived from the Leningrad Codex that they utilize as a Hebrew text to measure translations against, right? So we have a form of that, I believe, on this site, because I have a digital copy that I have to look for. I think it's my other hard drive. But I'll just use this so we can go through it together. All right, let's do this. And you said they want to know if something is plural. So you want to know if husband is plural? Is that what you're saying? Let me keep this up there. Is that what you're saying, Kevin? You want to know if husband is plural? Let me know if that's what you're saying. He says, how did they stay warm in the winter? That's an excellent question. They would cover up. Simple as that. They would cover up to stay warm in the winter. That's what they would do on the Sabbath day, right? They wouldn't kindle a fire, make any fire. They can make the fire the night before. You said the night before they can make a fire, but the day portion when the sun is out, they can't make no fire. That's work. That's why when the dude was caught picking up sticks, it wasn't at nighttime. It was during the day. Can't see outside to grab sticks at night. We have little to no artificial light. All right. Oh, Seth, I didn't see your question. Kevin G. Oh, you want to know if husband and maker. All right. So let's see if that's in the plural. And I think I know what you're talking about. I'm familiar with that verse, Ba'alim or Ba'ali, where you have the possessive construct suffix yod that indicates my husband. All right. Here he says for your maker. So let's see Isaiah 54 and 5. Let me make sure I'm recalling it correctly. So let's see Isaiah 54 and 5. And again, family, if you want to know these things, again, this is why I give these resources. This is why we have our classes where we teach some Hebrew. Why do I say some Hebrew? It's not a strict Hebrew class because we teach holistically. We get into sister cultures, customs, manners, material culture, geography, fauna and flora, etc. We touch a whole range of things that's pertinent to the particular passage, chapter, or whatever the case may be. We don't just simply stay on language. Language alone is not enough for you to decipher what's going on in the text. It's not, because you can know the language and not understand the culture. You can know the language, know the culture, and not realize that you're reading something that's a loan word or a gloss. This is important. Or the geographical location and why something was called the way it was called. All this is important. But anyway, let's get Isaiah chapter 45. Let me help my brother Kevin G out. All right. Let me help my brother Kevin G out. Good people. Let me help him out. All right. You said Isaiah 54 and 5. I'm sorry. Isaiah 54 and 5. Isaiah 54 and 5. And we're gonna take a look at this. Right. Let me share my screen. All right. Let's take a look at it together. All right, hopefully you're looking at the screen. Kevin, the reason why I'm bringing up this interlinear, because this will help you. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Meant to drop your comment so we can see. All right. So what I'm gonna give you, S. McGee. Hold on, I'm gonna show you this. I'm gonna show you this real quick. Amos 5 and 7 start at verse 4. Hear this, you who trample the needy or who do away with the poor of the land, asking, when will the new moon be over that we must sell grain? When will the Sabbath end that we may market wheat? Let us reduce the ephah and increase the shekel. Let us cheat with dishonest scales. Let us buy the poor with silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, selling even the chaff with the wheat. So the derivative of buying and selling on the Sabbath comes from out of Amos chapter 8 and 5, where the people wanted the Sabbath to end so they can market wheat. That's a form of buying and selling. right? And then that was incorporated into Nehemiah, Ezra. Again, Judaism started during the period of Nehemiah, Ezra. If anybody disagrees with that, I would love to have a dialogue with you. I got a whole bag of sources that I'm just going to lay on the table. Let me know. All right. All right. So let me get back to it. Hold on. Let me get back to it. 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 Hold on. Hopefully that helps, S. McGee. So look, check it. Let's just jump here. Right. Here's your interlinear. So you want to know if this is plural, right? Okay. For your husband, right? Husband here, you want to know if this is plural. Okay, so this is how you know. This ka here suffix means your, right? But in this case, it's bo a la yik. Yod hidik kaf, your final kaf, right? Which is the word which we say is ka, or in this case, it has a shed right here, which pauses it, which is your husband, your maker. Now check it. How do we know if this is plural or singular? What you'll see here is you'll see it keyed here, masculine, plural, common, right? Or construct. And here, second person, feminine, singular. So this right here, this ka, this final ka, will be the your, which can be plural, or your could be a second person. So your could be, if I say your, I could be talking to a singular person, or I could be saying plural, just like you could be singular or you could be plural, right? The construct form that we have here, which is right here, your patah, your yod, your hirik, and then your kaf, is interesting because, check it out, watch this. This right here is placed in what we call a verbal stem. It's the verbal plural. Check it out. Like your maker, it's a verbal noun. Very interesting. Very interesting. So people will say, well, it says for your husbands, and the is, the reason why it's in parentheses, because it's implied, is your maker. Yahweh of hosts is his name. The problem with looking at it in this sense, now again, this is very technical. Again, you look for the patah, yod, hirik, and final kaf. You want to see that this is in the construct form. This is in a masculine construct form, but your second person feminine singular. Now, what I want to show you is this, right? I want to be able to, want to pull it out on here so you can see what we're going on. How do you know when it's a plural construct form? You know what's really interesting? Even the word ishet, when people hear the word ishet, sometimes they assume that is a plural feminine construct. Let's lay it out for you so you can see, so you know that I'm not making up and that nobody else is making it up. Check it out here, right? Let me give you a source, right? Let me grab it from here so you guys can see why these references are very good. It's a compact. And Kevin G, grab you one of these as well so you can reference it, right? What we're looking for is we're looking for a construct form, right? How do you identify a plural construct form? Remember, a construct form is something that relies on something else, right? Something that is submissive to something else, right? Let me see if I can grab my construct form here for my noun. Let's see if we can get our construct form and look at our plural construct form, because that's what you want to know, right? Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can find it here. Let's see if I can find it here. Sometimes these are truncated. It's not here. So much for a compact guide. Should pull the full one up from behind me. But I got a chart for you. Check it out. And I'm showing you this way because I don't want you to take my word for it, right? So let's check it out. Let me bring it up. This is how you identify it, okay? Let me give you a great source, an excellent source, okay? Check it out. You pull it up here. Let's see. Let's see if this is what I want to show you. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, matter of fact, I'm gonna give you this website, by the way, so you have this website. can see where I'm at. I'm gonna send you this. Another excellent source for what we call diagnosing situation like this. There you go. All right. Okay, so let's see if we can find it here. Let's get our construct, a noun construct, right? Let's find it. Let's see. We want to look up where is this at? Let's see if this is what we want. Yes, so this is what we want. So let me show you here. Hold on one second. Let me show you right here. Let's see if this is what we want. Why is not giving me the paradigm for diagnosis? I have to pull up my other tool so you guys can see. Oh, hold on 1 second. What's this? On the screen. Check it out. Let me show. Matter of fact, let me show you this for an example, and then I'm gonna bring up a good source. Right? Check it out. I'm gonna go into the bag of sources here. Let me show you this right here. What I'm looking at. Share my screen. Watch it. All right. So an example of parsing out what we call a construct state of a noun. And normally the construct is of, or in this case, it could be your, meaning possessive, right? In this case of the word sus, which means horse, right? Or stallions, sus, right? Then you have sus is your masculine singular construct, where it's really nothing that changes, right? It's the same form. It's like it's a regular lexical form. Then you have suse, which is your masculine plural construct. What changed? You have the zere and you have the yud. Then you have your feminine singular construct, right? Which is susat, which is your patak and your tav suffix. And then you have your susot. Susot. There's no dagesh in the middle, so it's not a hard ta. It's a th sound, th sound. Susot. And these are your common, what we call construct states of nouns, which gives you what's called the of. In this case, we have the kaf suffix, which means your, but it's still in the construct form. So what do we look for? We look for our zere yod, we look for our patak tav, or we look for our cholam wav tav. Will tell you if you're looking at a feminine plural construct, feminine singular, or masculine plural. In this case, because the indicative is there and it's indicating that it's a masculine plural, we should see zere and yod. Sometimes you can see a play on, instead of zere, you have a patach. But let's go back to it. Let's go back to it so we can see what's going on here, right? This is not the full diagnosis chart that I was looking for, but unfolding is a great way if you want to break down the text, right? Let's see what we have going on here. In here, we have, check it out, the patach yod, right? Here we have patach yod. So zere yod would indicate what? Would indicate a plural, right? Construct, right? In this case, the patach yod here, patach is substituting for the zere because what do we have that prefixes it? We have a weak consonant, which is ayin, which relies on the diacritic mark to give it its value. Same thing here, right? So in this case, because we have this here and your sheen, which is the second of your trilateral root, your patach yod will give you the indicative that this is masculine plural. And your kaf is your suffix for your second person feminine singular, your. So technically it would say your makers or your husbands. It could say that. However, Yahweh is believed to be a masculine singular, because if this is referring to Yahweh, is it in what's called the plural intensive or the majestic intensive? Sometimes they lay it out such as that. But if we want to look at it mechanically, it is in the plural construct form. I mean, it is. So I don't know if that helps, Kevin G. What I wanted to do was, instead of me breaking it down and you taking my word for it, I wanted to give you sources that actually gives you a diagnostic chart on how you parse these things out. But just rule of thumb, a normal construct state for a masculine plural is zere underneath the second triconsonantal root, and yod, which is a infix, right? Or a suffix, could be a suffix. In this case, it's an infix because you have the kaf, final kaf there, right? And then we have your feminine plural, which will be your oth, which will be your cholam, wav, kav, oth, right? Like susoth, which means stallions, feminine, and suse, which is your stallions, plural, masculine. Now, it wouldn't be stallions if it was feminine, because stallions a male horse, but it could be mares or female horses, plural, right? So nonetheless, mechanically, when you see that MPC, masculine plural construct, that's what's there. Your second person feminine suffix is your kaf suffix, final color. So it should say your husband. But the interesting thing is, you see how they parsed it out further, and they say it's a verb and a stem participle. It is a participle. A participle can be rendered as an adjective. It can be rendered as a noun, pronoun. Participles are very, very unique. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show you a good video on participles, right? Check it out. Watch this. Watch this. Let me see if I can find this video that I got from Accordance, right? Matter of fact, let me do a search for it. I'm gonna show it to you. Check it out. I hate participles, man. They're very weird. All right, so let me see if I can pick it up. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yes. Dr. Russell T. Fuller. He did the one on this participle. Let me see if I can find it for you. I want to give y'all this video so you can see. So that's why you see the cow there where it says cow participle. Very interesting. Let me show you how to diagnose that. Let me give this video, if I can find the video. Where's this video at? Let's do seminar. But why is it not coming up? Let me see. Maybe I can find it this way. Hold on. All right, here it is. I found it. All right. Let me throw it in here for y'all. Cool. All right. So check out that video to learn more about a participle, how they're weird. They key it as a cow, a verb, cow, participle, right? And the reason why is because the diacritic markings can indicate that. However, it is technically a noun, right? But a participle can be a weird verb, adjective, pronoun. In this case, I'll say it's an adjective of Yahweh. It's a participle that is an adjective of Yahweh, right? Characteristics of him, things that describe the noun, right? So it says here, for your husbands is your makers. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Now, the interesting thing is, whenever you see this right here, this cholam wav, that suffix gives you the his. Shem, the root word here, means name or reputation. His name. Now, the reason why it's translated as the singular, right? Singular, is because Yahweh is the proper name that is a masculine singular noun of hosts. Again, remember I told you, your cholam, wav, tav, your ot is what? Your feminine plural construct form. This is not the lexical form of the word. It is the plural. So if it was feminine singular, we would have over here a cholam of some type or a tav, right? Here is Sebaot, ot, right? Which means it relies on Yahweh, right? The construct form relies on Yahweh. The word it typically relies on is proper or in its absolute form, meaning that it is not modified. It is the lexical form of the word that you can find in the lexicon, okay? So Yahweh Sebaot, Shemor, the O suffix, his name, right? Yahweh Sebaot, his name, Shemor. That's key. And then again, look at this right here, right? Is your Redeemer, right? Very interesting. We have the Zere here. But in this case, it's another what? Masculine singular construct form. Again, your participle, which is the weird stuff, right? Second person feminine singular, the kaf here. You have your wav here, your conjunction. You have your go alek. Go alek. Right here, you have your shortened patach, right? And that's a very quick sound, very shortened sound, right? Is your redeemers. So the key thing would be redeemers. Masculine, singular construct. No. Masculine singular, not masculine plural. So the redeemer connects with his name, which connects with Yahweh, but it opens up by saying your husbands and your makers. This is weird stuff. This is weird. It's weird. I think that that's there as a artistic or stylistic inference. And I would say this is a good case of what's called a majestic plural, right? Because if you keep reading, you have the Elohe. Remember, the Zere Yud is your construct form. Yisrael Elohe, which is the power of Israel, right? So Kedolos, what we call, it says the Holy One or the set apart one of Israel, and Elohe, the construct form of what? Kal, of all the earth. That's what he's called. The key thing here is looking at this, identifying stuff. Zere Yod, right? This is a perfect construct. Another perfect construct is Holam Wav Tav. An irregular construct that's plural is your Patach Yod. Your Patach Yod. Here is Zere. No Yod there. Zere. But here, the Aleph, your shortened Patach, your Lamek, and your Zere right before your Kaf, final Kaf. So this implies this is what we call a singular construct. Interesting thing is, you normally don't modify the noun in a singular construct. Here we see it's interesting that we have some modifications, but if Redeemer is singular, Holy One of Israel is singular, if the God of all, in this case Elohe, technically is your plural construct. The gods of all the earth is technically what it should read. But because I think the intensive is used here in regards to majestic plural, it's safe that you can say that Yahweh is one entity. All right. And he's the entity over plenty of other hosts. And his name, it says that's his name, Yahweh. And he's your Redeemer, right? He's the Holy One of Israel. The gods, then they say gods, they put the there. No, it really should say gods of all the earth. There's no indication that we're looking at a definite article here. Of all the earth. Kal Haaretz, Yik Kare. He is called what? The God of all the earth. No, he is called gods of all the earth. However, the he pronoun does not level up too well with a plural. So so when you read it in Hebrew, it looks weird. Parsing out looks weird. But now that's why I say learning the language is not enough. Now you got to interpret it in context. What are we talking about here? Because check it. Some Mormons use verses like this to show that God is plural, polytheistic. You understand what I'm saying? So, like I was going through Job earlier and show you peculiarities in Job. Matter of fact, let me show you a peculiarity in Job called the hapax or hapax legomena or legomenon, depending on how you want to say it, in Job. And I'll close out because we're only on 2 hours, right? We're on 2 hours. Kevin G, send me post your channel. I'll subscribe to it too and show you some support, right? So anyway, let's go to the last chapter in the book of Job, and I want to show you something very interesting, right? So I hope that helps you, my brother. Again, it's a matter of translation. Matter of fact, what I'll say to you is very interesting. When you get a chance, Kevin G, get the Net Bible. Get the Net Bible and look at the Net Bible's notes on that verse. The Net Bible, if y'all don't know who Dan Wallace is instrumental in biblical Greek and biblical Hebrew. And Dan Wallace is responsible for the putting together of the Net Bible, which is one of my favorite Bibles. If you want to know my favorite version of the Bibles, Net Bible, ESV, NIV. Hold on one second, y'all. Sorry about that. I had to go check out my daughter real quick. But anyway, go to the Net Bible, look up the notes on it, the footnotes on there, and it'll unpack a lot of good information on there for you. All right. All right. So anyway, and that's what I was saying. Learning language is not enough. You have to understand context. You have to understand how something is interpreted by the minds of the ancient Near East. John H. Walton, excellent author if you want to deal with that type of stuff. Michael Heiser as well, another great author if you want to deal with that type of stuff. And they have good notes, commentator notes on that passage, right? So interpretation is different from translation. If I was to translate that mechanically, y'all be like, whoa, that's weird. It looks weird. But if I'm interpreting it, so sometimes interpretation can play into a translation. So let's say I was only dealing with the language mechanically. I would translate that very, very exact to the grammar. But then if I gave it to somebody, it wouldn't make sense in English. It's like, what? It's not a lot of agreements there between the pronouns and the nouns that's referenced there. It's weird. But let me show you something very interesting. A hapax legomena or legomenon, right? That's Greek. But check it out. Let me show you something real quick, right? In the book of Job, and I'm ended off here, and we're gonna close out, right? So Seth, does this mean that man could take the damsel without paying dowry if the father doesn't refuse to give her to him? If the father refused to give her unto him, he shall pay money. So the father, so either way, the man has to pay a dowry. That's what it's saying. He still has to pay a dowry. Whether the father chooses to give her to him or not, he must pay the 50 shekels, which is the dowry or the bride price. All right. So let me know if that answers your question, Seth. There's no way he can never take the damsel without paying the bride price, whether the father relinquishes her to him or not. He still has to pay. All right. So more truth. All right, I'm gonna address yours as well. Again, I'm trying to close out, but I'm gonna address this for you as well. And these groups that not just groups on Clubhouse, groups I am on Facebook, groups I am on Instagram, in person when I go to congregations, when I go to conferences, these things come up a lot where people say modern Hebrew. Now, when you say modern Hebrew, are you talking about the Israeli Hebrew? That's different from biblical classical Hebrew. And biblical classical Hebrew is different from Mishnaic Hebrew. And both of them are different than inscriptional Hebrew, which goes back to the Iron Age period, right? Paleo is just a script. So the Aramaic script that you see when I'm showing you this biblical Hebrew, that's just a script. I can use the same script in Paleo, and I can add, guess what, diacritic marks to it. But let me show you this. And this is a challenge I put out to anybody who claims that Paleo-Hebrew is a language. Paleo-Hebrew is a script that represents a language. Just like I can give you the Aramaic square script without diacritic marks, and all it would be used for is representative. A good example of this is if you go into the Dead Sea Scrolls. Matter of fact, let me show you Dead Sea Scrolls real quick. All right, let me show you this, right? Check this out. Check this out. All right, this is from the Leon Levy Dead Sea Scrolls Digital Library, okay? This right here, this is Paleo-Hebrew. You see that? Paleo-Hebrew. Now, all of the Dead Sea Scrolls fragments are not in Paleo-Hebrew, but this one is. So what I would like to do is people that claim they can read Paleo-Hebrew, parse this out for me. Parse it out for me. I will transcript it for you, and I would love for you to parse it out. I would love to see this because I can only read this by knowing biblical Hebrew that comes from a Masoretic text type tradition that has preserved the diacritic marks that gets me to understand punctuation, to understand pronunciation, to understand grammar. When you remove all of those, anybody would be hard pressed to decipher what this is saying. Trust me. But when you learn it the traditional way first, now you can look at this and you can start to make it out. It's interesting. Biblical Hebrew is a language. I can reflect biblical Hebrew in Paleo-Hebrew scripts. But you're not going to find any biblical Hebrew works in Paleo-Hebrew unless it comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, unless you're looking from the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Samaritan Pentateuch, which has a form of Paleo-Hebrew in it. No diacritic marks. And those peoples, the Samaritans today, modern day Samaritans, speak Arabic, but liturgically speaking, they read Paleo-Hebrew. That's what we want to call it Paleo-Hebrew. It's not a language, but they read Paleo-Hebrew, and they have a pronunciation system on how they read their Hebrew without diacritic marks. That's important. So biblical classical Hebrew represents the Hebrew that goes all the way back to the Iron Age. But then you also have inscriptional Hebrew, which has different nuances. Mishnaic Hebrew, which also has different nuances. But once you learn biblical Hebrew, you can begin to read these types of things. All right. So I don't know who's gung-ho on Paleo-Hebrew, but they'll be hard pressed to parse anything out for me. If anybody you know who is making that argument can so-called read Paleo-Hebrew, then I'm going to give them a Paleo-Hebrew script from the scriptures, and I'm going to ask them to parse it out for me. I'm telling you right now, they're going to struggle with that. All right? Yeah, Bereshit Elohim bara, they said it was wrong because it has vowels. Tell them to tell us an intelligible language that has no vowels. Tell them to file you an intelligible language with no vowels. Unless you're going to go to clicks, like we have in our Khoisan language, or other dialects that's in a region like South Africa, etc. Right? So tell what intelligible language do you have with no vowels? What Hebrew exists that has no vowels? Even if you put an A-class vowel, like Yahweh, that's still vowels. You still got to pronunciate it with vowels. What is going on here? Is a vowel. So just because it's not written with vowels, first of all, biblical Hebrew, the square script Aramaic, is not written with vowels unless you look at the matres lectiones, which is a consonant that can double as a vowel, such as wav can double as a sound, as a u sound. the yud can double as a e sound or I sound. The wav can double as a sound or a u sound. Or you got something called defective writing, where, like, for example, the word Moshe is sometimes written with mem, wav, shin, etc. Right? However, defective writing remove the what we call matres lecciones, the wav with the cholam, it removes it and it puts the cholam over the shin. Over the mem, Moshe. Moshe, that's defective writing. You'll see that a lot when you compare the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Masoretic text. All right. So even if you look at Yahweh Shai has what? An I class vowel. It's not just a class vowel. There's also I class vowels, which is your ayin, because ayin does not have a phonetic value until you apply a diacritic mark or you apply a vowel sound to it or a consonant sound to it. It's very difficult for you to add a consonant sound, but it must be represented by a vowel. That's why you have Yahweh Shai. Why, when they was creating Lashon Kadash, did they do that? Because if you don't do that, it'll be very difficult to distinguish an ayin from a what? Aleph. And then when you have an Aleph, you double the A sound. It's supposed to be a glottal stop when you see ayin there. Aleph, infix. It's a glottal stop. Like, uh-oh, right? That's a glottal stop. So truth, more truth. I've talked about this ad infinitum, right? But again, I understand the Lashon Kadash very thoroughly. However, I have not met one person who speaks Lashon Kadash or says they speak Lashon Kadash that can perfectly parse a verse for me without using diacritic marks and without using tools. Very difficult. Very difficult. Yes, Sharon, you're right. Even the Canaanites had vowels in their dialect. Almost every language has vowels in their dialect, in their language, if it's going to be intelligible. Just because you don't write the vowels don't mean it's not there. All the diacritic marks do is reflect the vowels in your pronunciation system, or what we call your vocalization system. And by means of the Masoretic text, they have preserved what's called the Tiberian vocalization system. But if you go into the Geniza Cairo manuscripts, they had the Palestinian and Babylonian diacritic marks there that represents a Palestinian and a Babylonian vocalization system, which differs from the Masoretic text, which represents the Tiberian vocalization system. Anytime you hear Tiberian, it's from Tiberias, which is a particular city or locale in the Levant, Jerusalem or Palestine, and Babylon. Very, very interesting ways of preserving through diacritic marks vocalization systems. So again, example, do it for nation, brought it up. How do you differentiate malak and melek? One is a verb and one is a noun. If all I had was malak, how do you know which is a verb, which is a noun? Malak is your kal stem verb, meaning he reigns, right? And melek is he who reigns, is your verbal noun or your noun, a ruler, right? To rule and a ruler. Or they can also indicate a messenger based on the context, because the king was believed to be the divine messenger of the Most High. That's why if the king is corrupt, the nation gets corrupt. But Israel asks for a nation. Okay. All right. So hopefully I addressed that. Let me get to my last point so I can get off. Hopefully this is helping y'all. So Dasharab says we got and had vowels. We just don't know what they were. So if you don't know what they were, how do you even begin to add an A class vowel or a I class vowel in your ayin? How? If we don't know what they were, on what grounds? What's your premise for inserting the A class and I class vowels? You have to define that. Right? Language has rules. Truth, more truth. Yes, I have videos on this. You'd have to look it up on YouTube. I'm not sure the name of it. I did it some time ago, years ago, where I touched on this. However, if this is something that you would like me to touch on in the future, right, please sign up for our classes. In our classes, I talk about things like this. If it's a dogma that interferes with interpreting the text, right? So I'll bring it up. Okay. Perfect. Yes, Sharon. Perfect. Excellent. No. I'm gonna go. All right. So let me close it up. All right. Seth, you had another question? All right. So what happens if he refuses to give her? What would happen to the damsel going forward? Was she to remain in her father's household? And how would she operate in the community after the father refused? All right. I'm going to answer that. I was trying to get to Job, but let me just address this, because if I get into Job, it's going to be very late. But the point I'm trying to make is to find a hapax legomenon, or legomena, however you want to say, legomenon. Depends on how you render it. Go to Job, and this will be homework for y'all, right? Go to Job chapter 42, and you're gonna go to verse 11, right? Job chapter 42, verse 11. And I'm gonna give you a really big hint to help you figure this out, right? Hold on, I'm gonna get to you, Seth. Hold on. This will be your homework for next time, right? It says, then came to him all his brothers and sisters and all who had known him before and ate bread with him in his house. And they showed him sympathy and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. And each of them gave him a piece of money and a ring of gold. You see the C? That indicates a footnote. This is one of your hapax or hapax legomena. Okay? Which means it's only found one time. We don't have nothing else to compare it to define it. But this is an example of the weird things you find in the book of Job. Okay? And just like this word Ra for evil really means a disaster, something that is dysfunctional or goes against its original intended design. All right? That's what good and bad. Tov and Ra. Tov is something that goes according to its original design and is functional. Ra is something that goes against its original design and becomes dysfunctional. Okay? So when you look at good and bad in Hebrew, it's indicated by that which is functional and that which is dysfunctional. Okay? All right. Judah Balak, before you go, brother, can you do a video on the 1,000-year reign? Sure. If you want me to do videos, you got to email me, right? Email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, or if you sign up for the Patreon, inbox it to me, and I prioritize Patreon requests for videos, okay? Even if those videos are only on Patreon, which we're going to start doing going forward, we're going to have exclusive Q&A only on Patreon. You can ask me any of these questions. I'll spend 30 minutes and break down whatever you want me to break down for you, all right? I try to do it here, but here I really gloss through it. I'm not really prepared for it. It's freestyle. But when we do it on the Patreon, if you ask me the question, I'll take some time, sift through it, and I'll put together a 30-minute presentation, 15 to 30-minute presentation, kind of lay out whatever premise you're asking me about, okay? All right, so what is your number one argument to substantiate Negroes in America descend from ancient Israelites? My number one argument is being able to look at the West and Central African cities and towns that was either on the coast or in the hinterlands that had a presence of Black Jews, right? Or the Jews of Balad al-Sudan, right? If you can find those cities, and again, if you go to my Patreon, anybody that's in a Patreon here, I don't know if anybody that's here that's on my Patreon, have y'all been seeing those posts I've been putting up on Black Jews in West Africa? If so, hit 1. All right. If so, hit 1. Bergen, Paris, ZZ or fringes. The way we currently implement them, both of them are wrong. It's the way we implement them now is a form of halakha, right? But if we want to go back to its original design, it looks like a rope, right? A rope or a garland You ever seen a garland that you put on a Christmas tree or something like that? It's a garland of intertwined threads that wrap around like this, like a cord, and then they come down and they flourish out. They blossom out, right? Fringe is a bad word. It just means something that's on the outer garments. And the garments that they wore back then was much different than the garments we wear today, right? But anyway, the true original implementation of that, I have rarely seen anybody put on their garments. However, I want to start having them designed so you can see what they look like, right? We can start breaking them down. So Seth, Alexander, and Gurney Mosley. Shout out to Gurney Mosley in the building. I'm sorry I didn't see you, my brother. Shout out to the elder in the building. Shout out to you, Felix Carter, as well. I see you, my brother, the Black Karib. Shalom. It's okay, man. It's okay to miss the live, the Black Karib. Just check out the replay. It was late. You know, it wasn't intended to be advertised, anything like that. So it was just a pop-up show. But if you guys have seen it, you see all the references. Now, I'm going to start giving more references of Black Jews that migrated all the way down to South Africa. Some people think it's just the Lemba. No. It's more than just the Lemba. And then I'm going to show you the tribe of Dan and what we call Ethiopia, or the region near the Great Lakes of Africa. Okay? This is important. Hello, beautiful. You know it's time for sleepies, right? What woke you up? Okay. I'll take care of it. You can stay here with me for a second, and then you got to go back to sleep, okay? Okay. Fix your hat. All right. So let me read this, all right? So where was I going? I just forgot everything just now, man. But anyway, yeah, so if you go on a Patreon, I'm giving little clues, or I'm giving little sources that will be in an upcoming lecture where I'm going to lay it out. But the key thing is, if there were Black Jews in these regions that had outposts and forts where slaves were taken from, and you know about the native tribes that lived there and what their slave raiding techniques were, or their slave gathering techniques, right? Very interesting. A lot of times they were sourced prisoners of war, poor, and disfigured. They try to get rid of disfigured people, but mostly poor, prisoners of war, or foreigners that lives amongst them. What happened to the Black Jews amongst these native tribes that had presence there in the early 15th, 16th century, and even all the way up to the 18th century, and all of a sudden at the end or the close of the transatlantic slave trade, they disappeared. And then we see those hints or instances of these crypto Jews show up here in Americas. So that's another conversation. When the lecture comes out, you'll be able to see that and all of that, right? You see that every time I bring my kids here, people get distracted. Did you know that? Every time I bring you or your sister or your younger brother, your older brother, they get distracted. They forget all about DivineProspect. I know I'm not that handsome. It's okay, right? I passed the good genes that's in me down to my children. All right. All praise to the Most High. All right. All right. So there was another point I was trying. Oh, Seth. All right, Seth. Let me grab your point, Seth. I think yours was the last question, and I'm out. Okay. Good night to you as well, Sister Karima Lyricist. Thank you for staying up with us till almost 3 in the morning. All right. So what happens if he refuses to give her the father? What will happen to the damsel or the virgin? Oh, she won't be a virgin no more, or the young maiden. She will technically be an alma at that point. A young maiden can be a woman that has known a man or hasn't known a man. A betula is one that has not known a man, right? Well, what happens is, because the text does not explicitly state it, but we know based on sister cultures, we know based on material culture left behind by the Israelites, and we know by oral traditions that show up in what we call the Talmud, right? Targums as well. I'm trying to think. Yes, Targums, no? Mm-hmm. So she said it's in the Targums. I don't know. She knows. She probably know better than me. Anyway, so what would happen is the woman would stay with the father, right? If the father was sensible, the father was understanding, he would keep the daughter in his house. However, if he was to pass her off to another man to get married, the father would and the woman would have to tell the husband that she has already known a man. Therefore, the man would have to say, okay, you know what? I still love her anyway. I want to be with her. And what would happen is the bride price would be 50%. So instead of 50 shekels, you would give 25 shekels, right? Because she's no longer a virgin. And sometimes if the father puts the daughter outside the house and she's shamed in the community, the only way she can survive is going to another community and prostituting. Or some women didn't even prostitute. A lot of them did. Other ones will find other means or find a Gentile to marry them and take them in, right? Or some other man, another tribe somewhere else who is not aware of the stigma that she has, right? So these are various scenarios that happen. None of them are definitive in every case. It varied, but that is typically what would happen, right? So hopefully that assisted and helped y'all out. All right. Yeah. So if you guys see sometimes when I stop the camera or the mic, it's because I'm listening out. My antennas are always up for my kids 24/7, 365. Even when I'm not near them, I can sense things sometimes. So sometimes I got to stop what I'm doing and listen out for my children. It's very important to me that I know everything as much as I can that's going on in my household. So if some kind of danger or something poses itself, I don't want my child to ever say that my dad wasn't there for me. That's important to me, right? So I always listen out as much as I can, intervene and get involved as much as I can. But I thank my Isha because she also is there for backup, or she initiates as well. So we got a pretty good team going on here. You know what I'm saying? Nice little tribe. All right. So with that being said, yes, Saran. Yes. Matter of fact, if you go to the Patreon, I have a whole source that's in there that shows Abyssinia to the Congo and the mountainous regions for Abyssinia to the Congo had a whole bunch of what we call Black Jews that resided in that region. A whole bunch of them, right? So anyway, with that being said, I'm about to go. This is one of my mini me's here. Say hi. All right. And we're going to end out tonight so I can get you back in bed because you know you need to be sleeping, right? Yes, I know. So with that, family, hopefully you guys enjoyed this pop-up session. Those of you who are watching on a replay, thank you for watching. Thank you for everybody who donated and showed support. Please, if you can, sign up for the Patreon because a lot of your questions can be answered on the Patreon based on content posts that I make, books and articles that I post, or other tools and insights that I put on there. I put a lot of information on a Patreon. I take my time and I try to give back to y'all for what you invest in us financially. We appreciate that. And if there's anything else you guys need from us as a ministry, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. I know a lot of people have been asking us about religious exemption forms or letters for getting vaccinated. Things are getting much more difficult to do that. But in some cases, we can still give that. It's on a case-by-case basis, right? So we'll help you if we can. If we can't, we'll just let you know whatever options you have available, and we pretty much go from there, all right? Sister V Love says she has grown quite a bit. Yes, she has. All right, yes, she has, because a couple of years ago, she didn't even exist. And I showed her on this channel 7 times. So this is my youngest. No. So this is my youngest daughter right here. The oldest one is asleep. This is my youngest daughter right here. The oldest one is my mini-me. She reminds me of my younger brother, and my oldest reminds me of me. It's very, very eerie, very strange. I don't know too much about my young son yet because he's not old enough. I don't know. But the one thing I will say what the scripture says about having children. Check it out. I was going over this earlier. With my family, where I was talking about keeping the statute, laws, and commandments. We was going over Deuteronomy chapter 6, and Mark chapter 12. Where we was going over keeping the statute, laws, and commandments, and the 3 things that is guaranteed to you, right? If you're applying these things appropriately, is multiplication, preservation, and prosperity. In other verses, it also says extension or long life. If you keep these things, even in your captivity or in your exile, via Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 to I think verse 5. But in Psalm 127, I'm show you this, and I'm gonna leave off on this, right? Because I know in the past, You know, people would do parent shaming. Like if you had a whole bunch of kids, like me, I'm not stressed out, right? I love my kids. The way we handle things and everything is great. The different reforms we have going on in the household to assist with the weight, you know, of taking care of the kids. My kids don't stress me out. My kids are not bad and that. Well, like right now, you see her. This is how she is most of the time. Sometimes she could get a little playful, right? A little excited. But for the most part, I can sit here and do a whole session with you and she'll just be just like this. She won't interrupt. She won't overtalk me. She just sits there and she takes it in. You know what I'm saying? It's really good discipline that I think is innate. You think it's innate? Yes? Okay. She'll just sit here and she'll just chill, right? No screaming, yelling, jumping off the walls, touching stuff, breaking stuff. You know, she'll just sit here and she'll take in everything that's being said, right? Very disciplined young girl. But anyway, and again, I didn't make her like this. She just is just how she is. My children, this the way we run our household. This is just how they are, right? But the main thing I want to give you is Psalm 127, because I remember there used to be a lot of shaming in our community when you had a lot of children, right? But when you go to Psalm 127 in verse 3, it says something very peculiar. That is ethnic marker of our culture or cultural identity, right? And that is, children are indeed a heritage from the Most High, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. He will not be put to shame when he confronts the enemies at the gate. You know why? Because what happens is, and again, there's a book called The Bedouin Culture in the Bible. Go check it out. Men and women, or young boys and young girls, they were raised to understand equity, not equality. They're not equal, equity, right? Whereby you give the prospective gender all the tools and resources they need to perform their innate roles, right? The reason why there was a slight preference over having males to fathers is not because intrinsically males are more valuable than women, but it's because in those ancient times, they didn't have police officers, they didn't have the CIA, they didn't have the DEA, they didn't have a witness protection program, they didn't have child protective service, they didn't have none of that. You had to protect your clan, your family, and or your tribe. And the more sons you produced, the stronger protection and means of provision that you're providing the household. So if you have a bunch of sons and you are meeting an enemy at the gate, you have manpower to fight and overcome that enemy. That's little cultural things. James Freeman writes a book called Customs and Manners in the Bible, right? Very great book if you want to read it. There's several books that talk about biblical customs and manners, etc. But the Bedouin culture in the Bible lays this out wonderfully. If you want access to that book, sign up for the Patreon, do a search for it, and it'll come up, right? So with that, we want to end off and say thank you all for watching. Say Toda. Say Leila Tov. Say Leila Tov. Say Shalom. Say Rabahab. Great love. Much love. All right. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate the questions and the inquiries. Hopefully these guys helped you along your journey. We love you guys and we'll see you again. Wave goodbye. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Shalom. Say shalom. There you go.